This video was made thanks to this awesome request. Thank you for the title suggestion, and happy watching.
Before we dive into the video, let's first get to know who the boys really are. The boys are a group of anti-hero vigilantes created by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson, best known from the hit comic book series and live-action adaptation. Unlike traditional superhero stories where heroes are noble protectors, the universe of the boys features Supes, who are arrogant, corrupt, and dangerous individuals backed by a multi-billion-dollar corporation called Vought International. These powers aren't natural. They are chemically engineered using a drug called Compound V. Led by the ruthless Billy Butcher, the boys operate in the shadows to expose Vaught's corporate greed, keep rogue Supes in check, and bring down the world's most powerful, psychopathic superhero group, the Seven, led by the unhinged Homelander. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Quirks. If you're a fan of My Hero Academia, especially awesome fanfiction stories all about Deku, you're definitely in the right place. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow anime fans, and subscribe so you never miss a new upload. Also, if you have an awesome idea or title for the next fanfiction video, drop it in the comment below. I'd love to read your suggestions. And hey, if you want to support the channel even more and keep me extra motivated to create awesome content, consider joining our channel membership. By becoming a member, you'll unlock cool perks like exclusive loyalty badges and custom stickers you can use in the comments. If you've already joined, thank you so much. Your support truly means the world to me and helps keep this channel going. Alright, let's get right into the story.
The battle had already turned into chaos. Dust filled the air as Izuku Midoriya moved through the ruined training grounds, his eyes constantly scanning for openings. Beside him, Bakugo fired another controlled explosion while Todoroki covered their flank with a wall of ice. "Keep moving," Iida shouted. Ochako floated several pieces of rubble away from the battlefield while Tsuyu helped an injured student reach safety. Then the air changed. Izuku stopped. A strange distortion appeared above the ground. "What is that?" The distortion expanded rapidly. Crack. A bright flash swallowed the 6 students. Bakugo reached toward the ground. What the hell is happening? The ground disappeared beneath them. Izuku opened his eyes. Rain struck his face. He pushed himself upright and immediately looked around. Everyone. Bakugo was lying several meters away. "I'm here." Todoroki slowly stood. "Where are we?" Iida adjusted his glasses and examined the surroundings. They were inside a narrow alley. Tall brick buildings surrounded them on both sides. Trash containers stood near the walls, while neon lights reflected against the wet pavement. Ochako looked toward the end of the alley. "This doesn't look like Japan." Tsuyu crouched beside Izuku. "It's definitely not you." "Hey, Ribbit." Izuku stood. His costume was damaged, but his body appeared fine. He looked upward. The buildings were unfamiliar. Even the signs were written in English. "We've been transported." Bakugo frowned. "By who?" "I don't know." Izuku pulled out his phone. No signal. He tried the emergency network. Nothing. His expression became increasingly concerned. "We can't contact anyone." They cautiously left the alley. The city immediately overwhelmed them. Cars moved along enormous streets. Giant screens covered the sides of skyscrapers. Advertisements showed smiling superheroes posing for cameras. Izuku stared at one particular screen. A blond man in a blue and red costume stood proudly above a crowd. The words beneath him advertised a company called Vought International. Vought. Momo wasn't with them, so Izuku couldn't immediately analyze the company with her. Todoroki looked at the screen. "They have hero agencies here too." "Maybe," Izuku said. Then he noticed something strange. There were no mentions of Quirks. Instead, The advertisements repeatedly described the superheroes as products, celebrities, and corporate assets. Bakugo frowned. Heroes being sold like merchandise. That's strange, Izuku said. A scream suddenly came from the next street. Izuku turned immediately. Someone needs help. Bakugo grabbed his arm. Wait. We don't know this place. Izuku was already running. The others followed. They reached the street and found several civilians surrounding an overturned vehicle. A young woman was trapped beneath part of the wreckage. Izuku rushed forward. Everyone moved back. He lifted the heavy metal section with one arm while Todoroki froze the damaged vehicle to prevent it from shifting. Iida pulled the woman away. Ochako touched the remaining debris. Zero gravity. The rubble floated upward. Tsuyu helped another injured civilian escape. Within seconds, everyone was safe. Izuku crouched beside the woman. Are you hurt? She stared at him. You're not with Vought. Izuku blinked. Vought. The woman looked confused. Who are you? Izuku answered honestly. We're heroes from Japan. The woman stared at him. Heroes. Sirens approached. Izuku expected police. Instead, several black vehicles arrived. Men in tactical clothing stepped out. Their weapons were immediately aimed at the students. Hands where we can see them. Bakugo raised his palms. Seriously. Iida stepped forward. We are not hostile. The soldiers ignored him. One of them spoke into his radio. Confirmed. 6 enhanced individuals. Unknown origin. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Enhanced. Todoroki quietly prepared ice. They don't understand quirks. Izuku looked at the soldiers. Then at the giant Vought billboard above them. Something was wrong. Very wrong. From the roof of a nearby building, a man watched the situation through binoculars. He had a long coat, a beard, and an expression that showed absolutely no trust. Beside him stood a younger man. Who are they? Hughie asked. The older man lowered the binoculars. Don't know. They don't look like Supes. Doesn't mean they aren't. Hughie looked at Izuku and the others. They're kids. The older man scoffed. So are half the monsters Vought puts on television. He continued watching. Then Izuku stepped between the soldiers and the civilians. We're not here to hurt anyone. The man narrowed his eyes. Interesting. Hughie looked at him. What? The man handed him the binoculars. Looks like we've got ourselves 6 very confused Supes. Izuku didn't know that someone was watching them. He only knew that they were trapped in an unfamiliar world. There was no no All Might, no pro-hero system they understood. And somewhere above the streets, the symbol of Vought International continued glowing through the rain. Izuku looked at it. His expression became serious. We need to find out where we are. Bakugo cracked his knuckles. And if these idiots try something? Izuku looked toward the armed men. Then we'll protect ourselves. None of them knew that their arrival had already attracted the attention of one of the most powerful corporations in the world. And Vought International had no intention of allowing 6 unknown superpowered teenagers to remain free. The students were forced to leave the street before the police arrived. The armed men had eventually lowered their weapons after several civilians explained that the 6 teenagers had rescued them. Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Iida, Ochako, and Tsuyu were now hiding inside an abandoned storage building. Izuku stood near a broken window, watching the streets outside. We need information. Iida nodded. Agreed. Without communication with you, we have no way of knowing whether the dimensional distortion can be reversed. Bakugo crossed his arms. First we figure out what kind of place this is. Todoroki pointed toward the television in the corner. That might help. Izuku turned it on. A news broadcast immediately appeared. A smiling woman stood in front of a massive building. Vought International has once again announced record-breaking approval ratings for the 7. Homelander remains America's most beloved superhero, followed closely by Queen Maeve and Starlight. Izuku stared at the screen. The Seven. A video began playing. Homelander descended from the sky while crowds cheered. He landed beside a damaged vehicle. The footage showed him smiling for the cameras. Another successful rescue. Izuku watched carefully. Something about the footage felt strange. Then the news showed the actual aftermath. A civilian ambulance was damaged. Several people had been injured. The reporter immediately moved on to another topic. Izuku frowned. Why didn't they show what happened before? The broadcast continued. Another video appeared. A train was running through a city street. The camera showed him stopping dramatically in front of a crowd. The reporter praised his incredible speed. Izuku leaned closer. Wait. The footage briefly showed a different angle. A blurred figure appeared in the street. Then the screen immediately switched back. Izuku's eyes widened. Someone was there. What? Ochako asked. Right before a train stopped. Izuku rewound the video. He watched it again. A vehicle had been moving through the intersection. A train appeared. The image shook. Then the vehicle was destroyed. The broadcast never explained why. Izuku stared at the screen. There's something they're hiding. Bakugo clicked his tongue. Obviously. The door suddenly opened. Everyone turned. A man in a dark coat entered. Behind him was a nervous-looking young man. Bakugo immediately raised his hands. Who are you? The older man looked at the 6 students. That's a rather complicated question. Iida stepped forward. Identify yourself. The man smirked. Billy Butcher. Hughie raised a hand awkwardly. Hughie. Izuku remained cautious. Are you with Vought? Butcher laughed. No. Then why are you here? Because 6 unknown Supes just appeared in New York. Bakugo frowned. We aren't Supes. Butcher stared at him. Right. We're heroes. Butcher's expression hardened. That's what they all say. Izuku stepped forward. Our powers aren't artificial. Butcher studied him. Artificial. You mentioned Supes. Izuku pointed toward the television. Those people. Where do their powers come from? Butcher's eyes narrowed. You really don't know. Izuku shook his head. No. Hughie looked at Butcher. Maybe they're telling the truth. Butcher didn't answer. Instead, he switched the television channel. Another news report appeared. This time, a superhero was standing beside a crashed vehicle. The reporter described the incident as a heroic intervention. Butcher laughed bitterly. Watch closely. The footage showed the superhero lifting the wreckage. Then the camera angle changed. For less than a second, the students saw several injured civilians lying nearby. Ochako covered her mouth. They're hurt. Butcher nodded. And the Supe who caused the damage? He pointed toward the screen. He gets a medal. Izuku stared at the footage. Why? Because Vought owns the story. Butcher explained how the corporation managed the careers of superheroes, controlled their public image, negotiated sponsorships, and manipulated the media. Izuku listened without interrupting. So these heroes are paid. Very well. And their popularity affects their value. Exactly. Iida's expression darkened. That isn't heroism. Butcher looked at him. Now you're starting to understand. The television suddenly switched to breaking news. A crowd had gathered in downtown New York. Homelander and several members of the Seven had arrived. The reporter's voice became excited. The Seven have arrived to assist with a developing hostage situation. Izuku immediately stood. Hostage situation. Butcher looked at him. Don't. Izuku turned. People could be in danger. You don't know what you're walking into. Izuku looked toward the screen. If civilians are trapped, we have to help. Butcher stared at him for several seconds. Then he sighed. Bloody hell. Hughie looked at him. You're going too. Of course I'm going. Butcher grabbed his coat. Someone has to keep these idiots alive. The group reached the area several minutes later. Police had blocked the streets. A large crowd surrounded the scene. Homelander hovered above the street. His cape moved in the wind. Don't worry, everyone. The crowd cheered. Izuku looked around. Where are the hostages? Todoroki pointed toward a damaged building. There. A small group of civilians was trapped inside. Izuku immediately moved. We need to get them out. Butcher grabbed his shoulder. Wait. Izuku looked at him. Why? Butcher pointed upward. Homelander had already activated his heat vision. Red light appeared across his eyes. Izuku's expression changed. What is he doing? Homelander fired. Whoosh. The building's upper section exploded. Boom. The crowd screamed. Izuku stared in disbelief. Dust filled the street. Then Homelander smiled toward the cameras. Threat neutralized. Izuku's hands trembled. There were people inside. Butcher looked at him. Yeah. The smoke cleared. Several civilians were injured. One person wasn't moving. The cameras immediately turned toward Homelander. The reporter praised him for ending the crisis. Izuku stared at the screen. They're calling that a rescue. Butcher gave him a cold look. Welcome to America. Bakugo clenched his fists. That bastard. Todoroki's eyes narrowed. He intentionally ignored the civilians. Ochako looked horrified. Tsuyu quietly said, he doesn't look like a hero, Ribbit. Iida stepped forward. We cannot allow this. Izuku looked at him. Then toward Homelander. The man was smiling while cameras surrounded him. Izuku's expression hardened. No. He pulled his mask over his face. We can't. Butcher immediately grabbed his arm. Don't be stupid. Izuku looked at him. I'm not going to attack him. He looked toward the injured civilians. I'm going to save them. Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Iida, Ochako, and Tsuyu moved through the crowd. Their arrival immediately attracted attention. Homelander turned his head. His smile disappeared. He stared directly at Izuku. For a moment, neither side moved. Homelander's eyes narrowed. Who are you? Izuku looked directly back at him. We're heroes. The crowd became silent. Butcher watched from a distance. For the first time, he saw something he hadn't seen in years. A group of superpowered people who actually seemed angry about innocent civilians being hurt. And Homelander seemed to notice it too. The street had fallen silent. Izuku stood among the injured civilians, staring at Homelander. The Supes' smile slowly returned. Heroes. Homelander looked at the 6 students. I don't recognize your costumes. Izuku kept his voice calm. We aren't from this country. Homelander tilted his head. Then where are you from? Japan. A few reporters nearby began whispering. Homelander smiled toward the cameras. International heroes. How exciting. Izuku didn't return the smile. There are still people trapped inside. Homelander's expression changed slightly. The situation has been handled. Not everyone is safe. Izuku pointed toward the damaged building. We can hear them. Homelander stared at him. For a moment, the cheerful expression disappeared. You should let the professionals handle it. Bakugo stepped forward. Professionals. His palms began crackling. You just blew up a building with people inside. Izuku immediately raised an arm. Bakugo. I know. Bakugo glared at Homelander. I'm not starting anything. Homelander looked amused. Good. Izuku and the others began rescuing civilians. Todoroki created ice supports beneath the damaged structure. Iida carried injured people away at incredible speed. Ochako removed heavy debris. Tsuyu stretched her tongue through narrow openings and located trapped civilians. Bakugo used controlled explosions to clear dangerous rubble. Izuku coordinated everyone. Todoroki, support the western wall. Right. Iida, take these 3 to the ambulance. Understood. Ochako, there's someone underneath that beam. Got it. Within minutes, the remaining civilians were removed. The reporters watched. Some cameras turned away from Homelander and toward the students. His expression hardened. Who are those kids? One of the reporters answered nervously. We don't know. Homelander looked at Izuku. Find out. The students returned to Butcher's temporary hideout that night. The building was old and poorly maintained. Hughie placed several drinks on a table. "You guys really aren't from here." Izuku shook his head. "No." Butcher sat across from him. "Then start from the beginning." Izuku explained everything. Their school, Quirks, the dimensional anomaly, their fight, the sudden distortion, and finally, waking up in New York. Butcher listened without interrupting. When Izuku finished, Butcher leaned back. "So you're telling me your powers aren't from compound verses? We don't even know what compound V is." Butcher glanced at Hughie. "Told you." Hughie nodded. "They really don't know." Butcher pulled a small vial from his coat. A blue liquid was visible inside. "This is compound verses." Izuku leaned closer. "What does it do?" "Creates Supes." Izuku's eyes widened. "Creates. Children are injected with it. Some survive. Some don't." Ochako looked horrified. "Children." Butcher nodded. "Vought doesn't just manage heroes. They created most of them." Iida clenched his fists. "That's completely unethical." Butcher gave a dry laugh. "Now you're getting it." Izuku looked at the vial. "Then Quirks and their powers are completely different. Apparently." Butcher placed the vial back into his coat. "That's why you lot are interesting." Bakugo leaned against the wall. "What do you want from us?" Butcher looked directly at him. "Information." "About what?" "Your Quirks." Bakugo's expression immediately darkened. "No." Butcher smiled. "Wasn't asking permission." Bakugo stepped forward. "Try taking one." Explosion. Boom. Hughie jumped. "Whoa." Bakugo's palm smoked. "We're not experiments." Butcher didn't flinch. "Good." Bakugo stopped. "What?" "That's the answer I wanted." Butcher stood. "Vought will come looking for you." Izuku frowned. "Because we're different. Because you're valuable." A sudden noise came from outside. Cars. Several of them. Butcher immediately moved toward the window. Bloody hell. Izuku joined him. Black vehicles had surrounded the building. Men in tactical armor were getting out. Hughie looked nervous. "Vought." Butcher nodded. "Probably." Iida adjusted his glasses. "Then we should evacuate." Butcher looked at him. "Through the front door." "No." Izuku stepped forward. "Through the roof." Bakugo grinned. Finally. The first door was kicked open. Armed men entered. "Hands up." Bakugo raised both hands. "Eat this." Boom. The entrance exploded outward. The soldiers were thrown backward. Izuku immediately moved. "No lethal attacks." Bakugo clicked his tongue. "Fine." Todoroki created an ice wall. Crack. The soldiers were trapped behind it. Iida rushed through the corridor. "Everyone move." Ochako touched several pieces of debris. Zero gravity. The debris floated, blocking the hallway. Tsuyu grabbed Hughie and pulled him toward the exit. "Come on." Butcher followed. "You kids are bloody insane." They reached the rooftop. Helicopters appeared above them. Izuku looked up. They came prepared. Butcher pulled out a weapon. "Welcome to my world." A helicopter opened fire. Ratatatat. Todoroki raised an enormous ice wall. The bullets struck it. Crack. Izuku shouted. "Everyone stay behind cover." Bakugo jumped onto the roof's edge. "My turn." He launched himself into the air. Boom. He struck the helicopter from below. The aircraft spun away. "Bakugo." Izuku shouted. "I'm fine." Bakugo landed roughly. Boom. "See." Izuku sighed. "That's exactly what I was worried about." Another helicopter approached. Before it could attack, a powerful shockwave struck it. The aircraft was forced backward. Everyone turned. A man stood on a nearby rooftop. Black suit, long coat, scarred face. Butcher stared. "Who the hell are you?" The stranger didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the students. Then toward the Vought vehicles below. Izuku couldn't tell whether he was friend or enemy. Butcher raised his weapon. "I don't like surprises." The stranger disappeared into the darkness. Hughie looked confused. Was that one of them? Butcher shook his head. No. He looked at Izuku. And that's exactly why you kids need to leave this city. The group escaped through the rooftops and reached another safe location. Izuku sat against a wall. His costume was covered in dust. He looked at Butcher. Why do you hate Supes so much? The room became quiet. Butcher's expression hardened. Because I've seen what they do when nobody's watching. Izuku remembered Homelander. The damaged building. The civilians. The cameras. Not every person with powers is like that. Butcher stared at him. You sure? Izuku nodded. Yes. Bakugo crossed his arms. He's right. Todoroki looked at Butcher. We became heroes because we wanted to save people. Iida adjusted his glasses. Power doesn't determine someone's character. Ochako nodded. It's what they choose to do with it. Butcher remained silent. Then he gave a small, humorless smile. Maybe you lot really are different. Izuku stood. We need to find a way home. Butcher nodded. And I need to bring down Vought. He looked at the 6 students. Looks like we've got the same problem. For the first time, Butcher extended his hand. Izuku shook it. Neither of them trusted the other yet. But they had just formed an alliance that Vought International would soon regret. The safe house was quiet that night. Izuku stood over a map spread across the table while Butcher pointed toward a massive building marked with the Vought logo. That's 7 Tower, Butcher said. One of the most heavily protected buildings in New York. Izuku studied the map. And you think they're keeping information about us there? I know they're looking for you. Butcher placed several photographs on the table. After the incident downtown, Vought started searching for your identities. Iida frowned. How quickly? Very. Bakugo clicked his tongue. Then let's break into the building. Butcher looked at him. Subtle. Bakugo grinned. I wasn't planning on being subtle. Izuku shook his head. We need information, not a fight. He looked toward Ochako and Tsuyu. Which is why you two are going. Ochako blinked. Us. Tsuyu tilted her head. Why us, Ribbit? Because you're the best suited for infiltration. Izuku pointed at the building's security layout. Tsuyu can move through narrow spaces and stay hidden. Ochako can remove the weight of objects without making noise. Butcher nodded. They're right. He handed them 2 small communication devices. Get in, find anything connected to Compound V or your dimensional anomaly, and get out. Ochako nodded. Understood. Tsuyu smiled. We'll be careful, Ribbit. Several hours later, the 2 girls stood across the street from 7 Tower. The skyscraper disappeared into the clouds. Ochako looked upward. That's huge. Tsuyu crouched beside her. And heavily guarded. Security vehicles surrounded the entrance. Cameras covered almost every corner. Ochako adjusted her gloves. We need another entrance. Tsuyu pointed toward the side of the building. Maintenance access. A narrow platform extended from the lower floors. Ochako smiled. Perfect. They waited until a security patrol passed. Tsuyu immediately moved. She climbed the side of the building with her sticky fingers. Ochako followed, using her quirk to reduce her weight. Within moments, both disappeared from street level. Tsuyu reached the maintenance platform first. She opened the door slightly. Clear. Ochako entered. They found themselves inside a narrow service corridor. Pipes ran along the walls. Security cameras rotated overhead. Tsuyu pointed upward. Ochako touched herself. 0 gravity. Her body became weightless. She floated silently toward the ceiling. Tsuyu followed. They moved past the camera without triggering its motion sensor. That was close, Ochako whispered. Tsuyu nodded. Keep moving. They eventually reached a restricted floor. A security door blocked their path. Ochako looked at the keypad. I don't know the code. Tsuyu pointed toward the ceiling. There. A ventilation opening. Ochako smiled. Good idea. Tsuyu entered first. The narrow tunnel barely gave her enough room to move. Ochako followed. After several minutes, they emerged inside a dark office. Computers covered the desks. Tsuyu approached one of them. Maybe we can find something here. Ochako turned on the monitor. A login screen appeared. We need access. Tsuyu pointed toward a desk. There's a badge. Ochako floated across the room and retrieved it. She placed it against the scanner. Beep. The computer unlocked. Ochako smiled. Got it. They searched through the files. Most contained information about Vought's hero rankings, sponsorships, medical reports, and public relations campaigns. Then Tsuyu noticed a folder. Compound Versus. Ochako immediately opened it. Her eyes widened. There are thousands of records. Tsuyu read the screen. Child subjects. Ochako's expression changed. Children. The files contained photographs, medical information, injection records, and laboratory reports. Some entries were marked successful. Others were marked failed. Ochako covered her mouth. They experimented on children. Tsuyu's eyes narrowed. That's horrible. They continued searching. Then they found another folder. Unknown enhanced subjects foreign origin. Ochako froze. That's us. Tsuyu opened the file. Photographs from the street appeared on the screen. Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Iida, Ochako, Tsuyu. The pictures had been taken only hours after their arrival. Their quirk information was listed beside each name. Ochako stared. They already know. Tsuyu scrolled down. A warning appeared. Capture priority. Maximum. Research objective. Determine genetic origin of abilities. Secondary objective. Secure live samples. Ochako's hands tightened. They want to experiment on us. Tsuyu closed the file. We need to leave. An alarm suddenly sounded. Beep, beep, beep. Ochako looked toward the door. What happened? Tsuyu's eyes widened. Someone accessed the restricted database. Footsteps echoed through the corridor. Several guards were approaching. Ochako quickly removed the hard drive from the computer. We have the information. Tsuyu opened the ventilation shaft. Then let's go. The door burst open. Search the room. The guards entered. The girls were already inside the ventilation system. Ochako covered her mouth to keep herself quiet. Below them, the guards searched the office. One of them picked up the empty computer casing. They took the drive. Tsuyu crawled forward. Faster. Ochako followed. They reached another maintenance opening. Tsuyu kicked it open. Both girls dropped onto a lower platform. Ochako activated zero gravity. Their fall slowed. They landed silently. Then a security officer appeared at the end of the corridor. There. Tsuyu grabbed Ochako. Run. They sprinted. Guards chased them. Ochako touched several metal pipes. Zero gravity. The pipes floated upward. They blocked the corridor. Crash. The guards stumbled. Tsuyu jumped through a window. Ochako followed. They landed on the side of the building. Tsuyu grabbed a railing. Hold on. Ochako grabbed her. Tsuyu leapt from one platform to another. The two girls descended rapidly. They finally reached the street. A black vehicle was waiting. The door opened. Butcher leaned out. Get in. Ochako and Tsuyu jumped inside. The vehicle immediately accelerated. Bullets struck the rear window. Crack. Butcher looked back. Did you get anything? Ochako held up the hard drive. Everything. Butcher grinned. Good. Tsuyu looked at him. There were files about children. Butcher's smile disappeared. I know. Ochako looked at the drive. And they have information about us. Butcher stared at the device. Then Vought knows exactly what you are. Izuku's voice came through the communication device. Ochako. Tsuyu, report. Ochako pressed the button. We're safe. Did you find anything? Ochako looked at Tsuyu. Then at the hard drive. Yes. She took a breath. Vought is planning to capture us. There was silence on the other end. Then Izuku answered. We'll make sure they don't. Bakugo's voice suddenly came through. Let them try. Todoroki added calmly. We're ready. Izuku continued. Bring the drive back. Ochako smiled. We will. Far above the city, inside 7 Tower, a security monitor displayed the captured images of the 6 students. A man in a suit stood before the screen. They're not normal Supes. Another employee looked nervous. What should we do? The man stared at Izuku's photograph. Find out where they came from. He paused. And bring them to Vought alive. Outside the tower, the Vought logo continued glowing over New York. The corporation had just identified its newest targets. The safe house became unusually quiet after Ochako and Tsuyu returned. The hard drive they had stolen from 7 Tower was connected to a laptop. Izuku sat in front of the screen, carefully examining the files. There are hundreds of reports here. Iida stood beside him. Anything about our dimensional displacement? Not yet. Todoroki looked over his shoulder. Then what are they studying? Izuku opened another folder. Our quirks. Bakugo frowned. Of course they are. Before Izuku could continue, the laptop suddenly displayed a warning. Unauthorized network connection detected. Izuku froze. They found us. Butcher immediately stood. Everyone move. A loud crash came from outside. Crash. The windows shook. What was that? Ochako asked. Another impact followed. Boom. The wall cracked. Izuku immediately activated his quirk. Everyone. Defensive positions. Bakugo's hands began glowing. Todoroki created ice across the floor. Iida moved toward the entrance. Then something blurred past the window. Izuku's eyes widened. Fast. The front door exploded inward. A red and blue blur rushed through the room. Iida barely reacted in time. The figure stopped several meters behind him. A train turned around. Well, you're definitely not Vought property. Iida stared at him. You attacked our headquarters. A train laughed. Your headquarters. Butcher raised his weapon. You picked the wrong bloody house. A train suddenly disappeared. Izuku shouted. Iida, move. Iida accelerated. Boom. The 2 speedsters collided in the hallway. The impact shattered several windows. A train slid backward. What the hell? Iida skidded to a stop. His engines roared. You are fast. A train stared at Iida's legs. Those aren't compound verses. Iida adjusted his glasses. Correct. A train smiled. Interesting. A train disappeared again. This time, Iida anticipated his movement. He accelerated through the corridor. The 2 passed each other. Boom. A train slammed into a wall. Crack. He recovered almost immediately. You're pretty good, kid. Iida looked at his engines. Your acceleration is impressive. Thanks. A train grinned. But you're still slower. He vanished. Iida followed. The hallway became a blur. Boom. 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 Their movements shook the entire building. Izuku watched from the doorway. He quickly began analyzing. His acceleration is stronger at the beginning. Todoroki looked at him. Meaning, he reaches top speed faster, but his turning ability decreases at high velocity. Bakugo grinned. Then trap him. Izuku nodded. Exactly. Todoroki created a wall of ice across the hallway. A train stopped. Nice trick. He turned toward another corridor. Ice appeared there too. Crack. A train changed direction. Iida was waiting. Recipro burst. Iida accelerated. A train tried to dodge. Izuku shouted. Now. Ochako touched the floor. Zero gravity. A train's feet lost contact with the ground. His body flew upward. What? He spun uncontrollably. Iida grabbed him. Caught you. A train tried to accelerate. Nothing happened. There was no ground to push against. Bakugo laughed. That's hilarious. A train glared at him. Shut up. Izuku approached. We don't want to hurt you. A train struggled against Iida's grip. Then why are you attacking me? You attacked us first. A-Train looked toward Butcher. He's the one you're working with. Butcher stepped forward. Something wrong with that. A-Train's expression changed. You have no idea what you're involved in. Izuku frowned. Neither do you. A-Train stared at him. Vought won't stop. Izuku nodded. We know. Then you're smarter than you look. A-Train suddenly smiled. But you're still going to lose. His body suddenly tensed. Iida felt the movement. Midoriya. A-Train accelerated despite having almost no footing. He twisted his body and broke free. Boom. Iida was thrown backward. A-Train crashed through the wall. Crack. Izuku ran toward the opening. Stop. A-Train was already outside. He sprinted down the street. Iida stood. I can catch him. Izuku shook his head. Not alone. Iida looked at him. Then we go together. Izuku smiled. Right. The chase began. A-Train raced through the streets. Cars swerved away. Pedestrians screamed. Iida followed. Izuku ran behind him. Bakugo flew overhead using explosions. Todoroki created ice barriers to control traffic. Ochako and Tsuyu stayed with Butcher. A-Train looked back. They're coordinating. He accelerated. Iida followed. Stop. A-Train laughed. Make me. He turned sharply into a narrow alley. Iida followed. But the alley suddenly ended. A dead end. A-Train grinned. Got you. He turned around. Then saw Izuku standing behind him. A-Train stopped. How did you? Izuku pointed toward the rooftops. Bakugo. Boom. Bakugo dropped from above. A-Train dodged. Todoroki's ice blocked the exit. Crack. A-Train was trapped. Iida moved forward. It's over. A-Train looked around. Then smiled. Not quite. He pulled a small device from his pocket. Izuku's eyes widened. What is that? A-Train pressed it. A signal appeared. Butcher immediately recognized it. Tracker. Izuku's expression changed. He wanted us to chase him. Butcher nodded. And now Vought knows exactly where we are. Sirens sounded in the distance. Several black vehicles approached. More tactical teams. A-Train smiled. Told you. Bakugo raised his hands. Finally. Izuku stopped him. We don't have time. He looked toward the others. We need to leave. Todoroki created a massive ice ramp. Which direction? Izuku pointed toward the rooftops. Up. The group escaped through the buildings. Butcher grabbed the hard drive before they left. A-Train remained behind. As the Vought vehicles arrived, he looked toward the direction where the students had disappeared. His smile faded. For the first time, he looked uncertain. What the hell are these kids? Later that night, the group returned to another safe house. Izuku placed the hard drive on the table. Butcher stared at him. We're going to have to move again. Izuku nodded. And we need to find a way to stop them from tracking us. Iida looked at his engines. Perhaps we should also prepare for another attack. Bakugo grinned. Let them come. Todoroki looked toward the window. They'll send someone stronger next time. Izuku remained silent. He knew Todoroki was right. Somewhere in New York, Vought was already reviewing footage of their battle. And the next person sent after them wouldn't be a speedster. It would be someone far more dangerous. The safe house had been moved again. Izuku sat at a table surrounded by printed documents from the hard drive. The room was quiet except for the sound of pages turning. There's a pattern, Izuku said. Butcher stood behind him. What did you find? Izuku pointed toward several files. Almost every major soup in this country has some connection to compound verses. Todoroki looked at the documents. So their powers aren't natural. Not in the same way ours are. Bakugo crossed his arms. Then they're basically lab experiments. Butcher gave him a sideways look. Some of them were injected as babies. Ochako's expression darkened. Babies. Yeah. Butcher placed another file on the table. Vought discovered they could create powerful supes by injecting infants with compound verses, then they built an entire industry around it. Iida stared at the documents. That's monstrous. Izuku continued reading. The files contained medical reports, test results, genetic records, and photographs of children. Some were labeled successful, others were labeled unstable. One report described severe complications following an injection. Izuku's hand tightened around the paper. They knew there were risks. Butcher nodded. They always knew. And they continued anyway. Because it worked. Izuku looked at him. For money. For power. Money. Influence. All of it. Izuku lowered the document. His classmates remained silent. The world they knew had never been perfect. But even with villains, corruption, and criminal organizations, becoming a hero was supposed to mean protecting people. Here, children had been turned into corporate assets before they could even understand what a hero was. Ochako looked at another report. What about ordinary people? Butcher answered. Most people don't know the truth. They think the 7 were born special. That's the story Vought sells. Todoroki frowned. And everyone believes it. Most do. Bakugo scoffed. Idiots. Izuku shook his head. They don't have the information. Butcher looked at him. Exactly. Izuku stared at the files. Then we need to expose it. Butcher smiled faintly. Now you're thinking like one of the boys. A loud knock suddenly came from the door. Everyone froze. Butcher reached for his weapon. Who is it? A familiar voice answered. It's me. The door opened. A train stood outside. Bakugo immediately raised his hands. You've got some nerve coming here. A train raised both hands. Relax. Iida stepped forward. Why are you here? A train looked at Butcher. Because Vought is getting nervous. Butcher laughed. And you care. A train's expression became serious. They're going after these kids. Izuku stared at him. Why warn us? A train hesitated. Because I know what happens when Vought decides someone is a problem. A train entered the room. He looked at the documents. You found the compound versus files. Izuku nodded. Yes. A train looked away. Then you know. Know what? A train sighed. I wasn't born with my speed. Iida's expression changed. A train pointed toward his legs. Compound versus. Iida stared at him. You were injected. Yeah. A train's voice became quieter. And now I have to keep taking it to stay at the top. Bakugo frowned. So your body depends on it. A train didn't answer. That was enough. Izuku stood. You don't have to keep doing this. A train laughed bitterly. You don't understand. Then explain. A train looked toward the window. Vought owns everything. He counted on his fingers. My contracts. My sponsors. My apartment. My career. He looked at Izuku. If I turn against them, they destroy me. Izuku replied calmly. That's not freedom. A train stared at him. You really don't know how this world works. No. Izuku nodded. But I know what a hero should be. A train looked away. For a moment, nobody spoke. Suddenly, a television in the corner turned on. A news report appeared. Breaking news. Vought International has issued a statement regarding the 6 unidentified enhanced individuals currently operating in New York. Izuku looked toward the screen. Their photographs appeared. Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Iida, Ochako, Tsuyu. The reporter continued. Vought representatives claim these individuals may pose a significant public safety threat. Bakugo's face darkened. What? The screen changed. A digitally edited image showed Bakugo attacking civilians. Another showed Todoroki supposedly freezing police officers. Izuku stared. That's fake. Butcher nodded. Of course it is. The reporter continued. Vought urges the public to remain calm and report any sightings. Ochako clenched her fists. They're making us look like villains. That's how they control the story. Butcher said. Izuku looked at the screen. Then at the compound versus files. He suddenly understood. They're afraid. Todoroki looked at him. Of us. Of what we represent. Izuku pointed toward the television. We don't belong to Vought. They can't control our powers, our identities, or our actions. Butcher smiled. And that's dangerous to them. A-Train stood. I need to go. Izuku looked at him. Will you help us? A-Train hesitated. I don't know. Izuku didn't pressure him. If you change your mind, find us. A-Train walked toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped. Homelander knows about you now. The room became silent. Bakugo's expression hardened. Good. A-Train looked at him. You don't understand. He turned toward Izuku. He isn't like me. Izuku nodded. I know. A-Train left. The door closed. Butcher looked at the students. We have a problem. Izuku nodded. Homelander. Yeah. Iida adjusted his glasses. Then we need a strategy. Izuku opened his notebook. First, we expose compound verses. He began writing. Second, we protect civilians. Another line. Third, we find a way home. Bakugo leaned over the table. And fourth, Izuku looked toward him. Bakugo grinned. We deal with Homelander. Izuku closed his notebook. When the time comes. Outside, the city remained bright with Vought advertisements. Millions of people continued believing that the seven were heroes. But inside the small safe house, 6 students now knew the truth. And they had no intention of keeping it hidden forever. The safe house remained quiet after A-Train left. Izuku was still studying the compound versus files when a loud crash came from several streets away. Boom. Everyone looked toward the window. Bakugo stood immediately. That sounded close. Butcher grabbed his coat. Stay here. Bakugo glared at him. No. I said stay. And I said no. Izuku closed his notebook. We should check it. Butcher sighed. Fine. But nobody goes alone. They reached the street several minutes later. A crowd had gathered around a small convenience store. 3 Supes stood in front of the entrance. Their costumes carried Vought logos. One of them had already smashed the store's front door. Pay up. The largest Supe shouted. The shop owner stood behind the counter. I already paid your people last month. The Supe grabbed him by the collar. That was last month. Bakugo's expression darkened. They're extorting him. Izuku nodded. And they're using their powers to intimidate civilians. Butcher looked at him. Don't get involved. Bakugo stepped forward. Too late. The largest Supe noticed him. Hey, kid. Bakugo stopped. What? The Supe laughed. You one of those freaks everyone's talking about. Bakugo's palms began crackling. Call me that again. Izuku stepped beside him. We don't want to fight. The Supe grinned. Then walk away. Bakugo raised one hand. No. Boom. The explosion struck the pavement between them. The Supe stumbled backward. The civilians screamed and ran. Izuku immediately shouted. Everyone get behind us. Todoroki created an ice barrier. Ochako moved toward the civilians. Come on. This way. Tsuyu helped an elderly man away from the street. Iida positioned himself between the civilians and the Supes. You will not harm these people. The 3 Supes attacked. The largest charged toward Bakugo. Bakugo jumped. Boom. He propelled himself over the attack. The Supe swung again. Bakugo twisted in midair and fired another explosion. Boom. The Supe crashed into a parked vehicle. The second Supe attacked Todoroki. Todoroki raised his hand. Ice spread across the street. Crack. The Supe's legs froze. What the hell? Todoroki looked at him. Stay down. The third Supe tried to reach Ochako. Iida intercepted him. You will not get past me. The Supe swung. Iida accelerated. Boom. He struck the man's chest and sent him rolling across the pavement. Bakugo landed in front of the largest Supe. The man slowly stood. You think you're tough? Bakugo grinned. I know I am. The Supe charged. Bakugo didn't move. At the last moment, he released an explosion directly beneath his feet. Boom. He launched himself upward. The Supe missed. Bakugo flipped over him. Too slow. He fired a concentrated blast into the man's back. Boom. The Supe crashed onto the pavement. He tried to stand. Bakugo raised his hand again. Izuku grabbed his shoulder. That's enough. Bakugo turned. He's still moving. He's defeated. Bakugo stared at the unconscious Supe. Then lowered his hand. Fine. The shop owner emerged from the store. His hands were shaking. Thank you. Bakugo looked at him. Don't thank me. The man blinked. What? Bakugo pointed toward the damaged store. We're supposed to protect people. Izuku smiled faintly. The shop owner looked at the students. You're the ones from the news. Izuku nodded. Yes. The man's expression changed. They said you were dangerous. Bakugo snorted. Of course they did. Izuku looked at the injured civilians. We aren't here to hurt anyone. Sirens approached. Butcher looked down the street. We need to leave. Iida frowned. The police should handle these Supes. Butcher shook his head. The police won't do anything. Why? Because those costumes belong to Vought. Bakugo clicked his tongue. Then we'll handle it ourselves. Butcher looked at him. That's exactly what Vought wants. Bakugo frowned. What? They want you angry. Butcher pointed toward a nearby camera. Because every explosion you make becomes another headline. Izuku looked at the camera. Someone was recording everything. They'll edit the footage. Yep. Bakugo's expression hardened. Let them. The group returned to the safe house. Within an hour, the news broadcast began. The screen showed Bakugo's explosions. The footage had been cut to make it appear as though he had attacked the Supes without reason. The reporter called him an unregistered violent Supe. Bakugo stared at the television. Those bastards. Izuku looked at him. They're afraid of you. Bakugo turned. Of me. Of all of us. Izuku pointed at the screen. They can't control what we do. They can't use us for advertisements. They can't threaten us with contracts. Todoroki nodded. So they make the public fear us. Butcher walked into the room. You're learning quickly. Bakugo looked at him. What now? Now we make sure Vought can't control the next story. Izuku opened his notebook. We need evidence. Butcher nodded. Exactly. Ochako looked toward the compound versus files. And we already have plenty. Izuku stared at the data. Then we need to release it. Butcher smiled. That's the plan. Outside, the Vought tower illuminated the night sky. Inside the building, executives watched the same footage. One of them paused the recording on Bakugo's face. The explosive one is becoming a problem. Another executive nodded. And the green-haired one is worse. Why? Because people are starting to believe him. The room fell silent. Then a voice came from the doorway. Then stop letting him talk. Everyone turned. Homelander stood there. His smile was calm. His eyes were not. I'll deal with them. The executives said nothing. Homelander looked at the screen one last time. Izuku's face remained frozen on the monitor. They think they're heroes. His smile widened. Let's see how long that lasts. The safe house was quiet that night. Izuku sat at the table with his notebook open, comparing the information from Vought with everything Butcher had told them. Bakugo leaned against the wall. Todoroki sat nearby. Ochako and Tsuyu were checking the emergency supplies while Iida organized the communication equipment. Butcher stood beside the window. We need to move again. Izuku looked up. Because of the news. Because of Homelander. The room became silent. Bakugo frowned. He's coming. Butcher nodded. Probably. High above New York, Homelander stood on the roof of a skyscraper. The wind moved his cape. Below him, thousands of people continued their daily lives. He ignored them. His attention was fixed on a tablet in his hand. 6 photographs appeared on the screen. Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Iida, Ochako, Tsuyu. A Vought analyst stood behind him. We've confirmed that none of them exist in our databases. Homelander stared at Izuku's photograph. Not even the green-haired one. Nothing. Family. No records. School. None. Homelander's smile faded. Then where did they come from? The analyst hesitated. We don't know. Homelander looked toward the city. Find out. Back at the safe house, Izuku suddenly stopped writing. His danger sense activated. His body tensed. Someone's here. Bakugo immediately stood. Where? Izuku looked toward the ceiling. Above us. Todoroki created ice across the windows. Iida moved toward the others. Then the roof exploded. Boom. Dust filled the room. Everyone raised their guard. A figure descended through the opening. Homelander landed without a sound. He looked around. Well, his eyes moved across the students. There you are. Bakugo's palms sparked. Get out. Homelander smiled. That's not very welcoming. Izuku stepped forward. You shouldn't be here. Homelander laughed. This is my city. There are civilians nearby. And, Izuku frowned. Homelander's smile widened. You really are different. He walked closer. Most Supes would be begging for a photograph right now. Izuku didn't move. We aren't here for fame. Homelander tilted his head. Then what do you want? To go home. And if you can't, Izuku's expression hardened. We'll find another way. Homelander stared at him. Then his eyes began glowing red. What if I don't let you? Red light flashed across the room. Izuku moved immediately. Everyone, spread out. Homelander fired. Whoosh. The laser cut through the wall. Todoroki raised an ice barrier. Crack. The ice melted instantly. That's hot, Todoroki said. Bakugo blasted himself toward Homelander. Boom. Homelander caught his wrist. Bakugo's eyes widened. Let go. Homelander threw him across the room. Crash. Bakugo struck the wall. Bakugo. Izuku rushed forward. Black whip snapped from his arm. Homelander caught it. Interesting. He pulled. Izuku was dragged forward. Homelander swung his fist. Izuku barely avoided it. Boom. The wall behind him shattered. Izuku landed beside Ochako. Everyone okay? Bakugo stood. I'm fine. Todoroki nodded. Iida stepped forward. His physical strength is extraordinary. Izuku stared at Homelander. We can't fight him normally. Homelander suddenly flew upward. He hovered above the room. You're strong. He looked at Izuku. But not strong enough. Izuku activated full cowling. Green energy surrounded his body. Danger sense triggered again. Homelander disappeared. Izuku ducked. Boom. The wall behind him exploded. Izuku moved. Homelander followed. Another punch. Izuku dodged. Another. He dodged again. He's fast, Izuku thought. Danger sense warned him seconds before every attack. That was the only reason he remained standing. Todoroki launched a wave of ice. Homelander flew above it. Bakugo attacked from behind. Boom. Homelander blocked the explosion. Iida rushed in. Recipro turbo. Homelander caught his leg. Iida's eyes widened. Too slow. Homelander threw him aside. Ochako touched the ground. Zero gravity. Homelander's body suddenly became weightless. He looked down. What? He floated upward. Izuku immediately used Black Whip. He pulled Homelander toward the ceiling. Bakugo fired. Boom. The explosion struck Homelander. He was thrown through the roof. The students stared upward. Bakugo grinned. Got him. Izuku shook his head. No. Homelander returned seconds later. His costume was slightly damaged. His expression had changed. He was no longer smiling. You actually hurt me. His eyes began glowing again. Izuku stepped forward. Stop. Homelander's gaze locked onto him. You think you're a hero? Yes. Then prove it. Homelander fired. Izuku dodged. The laser passed over his shoulder and struck the wall behind him. Boom. Izuku countered with a smash. Homelander blocked it. The impact pushed him backward. His eyes widened. "You're stronger than you look." Izuku didn't answer. He immediately grabbed Ochako's hand. "We're leaving." Todoroki understood immediately. He created a massive ice wall. Crack. The wall blocked Homelander's vision. Iida grabbed Bakugo. "Everyone move." Tsuyu opened the emergency exit. The students rushed through. Izuku remained last. Homelander melted the ice. Whoosh. Running. Izuku looked back. "We don't want to fight you." Homelander smiled. "You will." Izuku disappeared through the doorway. The students escaped into the underground tunnels. Bakugo was furious. "We should have finished him." Todoroki shook his head. "We couldn't." Iida looked at Izuku. "His power exceeds our current information." Izuku nodded. "He's extremely strong." Ochako looked worried. "What are we going to do?" Izuku stared at the tunnel ahead. "We need a better plan." Butcher appeared from a side passage. "Now you understand." Izuku looked at him. "He's worse than we thought." Butcher nodded. "Yep." He looked toward the ceiling. "And now he knows exactly what you're capable of." Far above them, Homelander stood on the remains of the safe house. Vought agents surrounded the building. One approached him. "Should we send a full recovery team?" Homelander shook his head. "No." He looked toward the tunnel entrance. "I'll find them myself." The agent hesitated. "And if they resist?" Homelander smiled. "Then I'll show them what a real hero looks like." The cameras surrounding the building continued recording. Homelander turned toward them and smiled. The public saw their beloved hero standing proudly above the wreckage. None of them saw the anger behind his eyes. The underground tunnel was silent. Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, Iida, Ochako, and Tsuyu followed Butcher through the narrow passage beneath New York. Hughie walked behind them, carrying several bags of equipment. "How far?" Iida asked. "Another few minutes," Butcher replied. Izuku looked at the walls. "This place belongs to you." "One of several." Bakugo scoffed. "You have a lot of hideouts. You learn to keep moving." They reached a reinforced metal door. Butcher entered a code. Beep. The door opened. Inside was a larger room filled with computers, weapons, maps, and communication equipment. Izuku immediately looked around. This could work. Butcher nodded. "For now." Todoroki approached one of the monitors. "What are those?" Hughie looked at the screen. Vought activity. Several red markers were moving across a map. Izuku leaned closer. "They're searching underground." Butcher frowned. "Already." Izuku pointed toward one of the markers. "They're spreading out." Bakugo cracked his knuckles. "Let them come." Butcher looked at him. "That's not the plan." Before he could continue, the lights went out. Click. Everyone froze. Tsuyu looked upward. "That's not good, Ribbit." A loud impact shook the building. Boom. The reinforced ceiling bent inward. Hughie stumbled backward. What was that? Butcher grabbed his weapon. "We've been found." Another impact struck. Boom. The ceiling cracked. Then a figure dropped through the opening. Black clothing. A dark mask. Silent eyes. Black Noir landed without making a sound. Bakugo immediately raised his hands. "Another one." Todoroki stepped forward. "He's with Vought." Butcher nodded. "Black Noir." Noir drew his blades. Izuku moved in front of the others. "We don't need to fight." Noir didn't respond. He charged. Todoroki raised an ice wall. Crack. Noir sliced through it. Todoroki stepped back. He cut through the ice. Noir continued forward. Bakugo fired an explosion. Boom. Noir twisted around it. He moved through the smoke and attacked again. Todoroki blocked with another ice barrier. Crack. The barrier broke. Izuku activated full cowling. He moved between them. Black Whip wrapped around Noir's arm. Stop. Noir pulled hard. Izuku was dragged toward him. Bakugo fired. Boom. Noir released the black whip and disappeared into the smoke. Another sound came from the hallway. Water splashed. A man in a blue suit stepped into the room. The Deep looked around. Wow. He looked at the students. You guys are definitely not from Vought. Bakugo stared. Who the hell are you? The Deep pointed at himself. The Deep. Bakugo frowned. Never heard of you. The Deep's expression dropped. Seriously. Todoroki looked at him. You have a strange costume. It's a uniform. It looks like a diving suit. The Deep became annoyed. It's a superhero costume. Bakugo smirked. Whatever. The Deep suddenly attacked. Todoroki raised his hand. A wall of ice erupted from the ground. Crack. The Deep smashed through it. I've got this. He charged toward Todoroki. Todoroki released fire from his left side. Whoosh. The Deep stopped. Fire. Todoroki's flames surrounded the area. The Deep backed away. Okay. He looked around. That's not fair. Bakugo laughed. You're complaining about fair. Boom. Bakugo launched an explosion. The Deep was knocked backward. Crash. He hit a wall. Ow. Bakugo grinned. Weak. Black Noir attacked again. This time he targeted Iida. Iida accelerated. Recipro burst. He moved around Noir. Noir tracked him. Their movements became a blur. Iida attempted a kick. Noir blocked. Iida attacked again. Noir countered with his blade. Crack. Iida jumped backward. Izuku shouted. Iida, don't get close to his blades. Understood. Tsuyu moved behind Noir. Her tongue wrapped around his wrist. Got you. Ribbit. Noir immediately pulled her forward. Tsuyu landed on her feet. Ochako touched Noir's arm. Zero gravity. Noir's body suddenly became weightless. He floated toward the ceiling. Bakugo laughed. Nice. The Deep tried to help. He charged toward Ochako. Todoroki stepped in. Fire erupted across the floor. Whoosh. The Deep stopped. I can't get through that. Todoroki stared at him. Then don't. He released a second wave of ice. Crack. The Deep was frozen from the waist down. Hey. Todoroki turned away. Stay there. Black Noir broke free from Ochako's quirk by grabbing a metal support. He pulled himself downward. Izuku moved. Black Whip wrapped around his legs. Noir cut through it. Izuku immediately dodged. Danger sense activated. He ducked. A blade passed above his head. Crack. The wall behind him was cut open. Izuku stared at the slash. He's extremely precise. Butcher shouted. Don't let him separate you. Izuku nodded. Everyone, stay together. The Deep suddenly broke free from the ice. He charged toward Todoroki. Enough. Todoroki released both sides of his quirk. Fire and ice exploded outward. Boom. The Deep was thrown across the room. Crash. He landed beside Black Noir. Both stared at the students. Bakugo raised his hands. Want another? The Deep slowly stood. No. Black Noir looked toward him. The Deep shook his head. I'm good. Then the ceiling above them began shaking. Izuku looked upward. His danger sense activated violently. Everyone, move. The ceiling collapsed. Boom. Dust filled the room. Izuku pulled Ochako and Tsuyu away. Iida carried Hughie. Bakugo grabbed Butcher. Todoroki raised a massive ice shield. Crack. The falling debris hit the shield. When the dust cleared, a figure hovered above the destroyed ceiling. Homelander. He looked down. Found you. The Deep immediately stepped back. Homelander. Black Noir remained silent. Homelander looked toward the students. You've been causing quite a mess. Izuku stared upward. You sent them. Homelander smiled. I sent everyone. Bakugo raised his palms. Then come down here. Homelander laughed. You're brave. His eyes began glowing red. Izuku immediately moved. Everyone, behind me. Todoroki stood beside him. Ice formed around his feet. Bakugo prepared his explosions. Iida lowered his stance. Ochako and Tsuyu moved behind the others. Homelander's eyes glowed brighter. Then Butcher shouted, "Move!" Whoosh! The lasers fired. Izuku and Todoroki reacted simultaneously. Ice erupted. Boom! The lasers tore through it. Todoroki was thrown backward. Izuku grabbed him. "Are you okay?" Todoroki nodded. "Yes." Izuku looked toward Homelander. The situation had just become much worse. They had been prepared to fight the Deep and Black Noir. But Homelander had arrived himself. And this time, there was nowhere left to run. The underground hideout was filled with smoke. The remains of the ceiling covered the floor while broken equipment sparked around the room. Homelander hovered above the destruction. Beside him stood Black Noir and the Deep. Izuku stood with the others, his costume covered in dust. Todoroki had one hand raised. Bakugo's palms were glowing. Iida stood ready to move. Ochako and Tsuyu stayed behind them. Butcher aimed his weapon toward Homelander. "You've got a lot of nerve coming down here." Homelander smiled. "I'm simply here to collect what's mine." Izuku frowned. "We don't belong to Vought. Everything special in this country belongs to Vought." Homelander pointed toward them. "And you're going to learn that." Izuku stepped forward. "We won't hurt you if you leave." Homelander laughed. "You still think you're in control?" His eyes began glowing. Izuku's danger sense activated. "Move!" Whoosh! The laser swept across the room. Todoroki raised an ice wall. Crack! The beam cut through it. Bakugo propelled himself upward. Boom! He attacked Homelander from behind. Homelander turned. He caught Bakugo's arm. "Got you." Bakugo's eyes widened. Homelander threw him downward. Crash! Izuku rushed forward and caught him with Black Whip. "Bakugo. I'm fine." Homelander looked amused. "Interesting." Iida accelerated. Recipro Turbo. He moved around Homelander. Homelander tried to follow him with his eyes. Iida kicked. Boom. The attack connected. Homelander moved backward slightly. He looked surprised. "You're fast." Iida immediately retreated. Todoroki followed with a massive wave of ice. Crack! Homelander flew upward. Ochako touched several pieces of debris. Zero gravity. The rubble floated around Homelander. Tsuyu grabbed one piece with her tongue and launched it toward him. Homelander destroyed it with his laser. Annoying. Izuku looked around. "We can't keep fighting here." Butcher nodded. "Then get everyone outside." Izuku rushed toward the civilians trapped in the neighboring rooms. "Everyone, move." The students began evacuating the building. Todoroki created pathways through the debris. Iida carried injured people. Ochako removed heavy rubble. Tsuyu reached civilians trapped in narrow spaces. Bakugo used controlled explosions to clear blocked passages. Even the Deep hesitated before helping. He looked toward a group of civilians. "You heard them. Move." Black Noir silently carried an injured person out. Izuku noticed. For a moment, the battlefield stopped looking like a fight between heroes and villains. Everyone was simply trying to get people out alive. Homelander descended into the street. Hundreds of civilians had gathered nearby. Cameras were already recording. He smiled. "Don't worry." He spread his arms. "Your hero is here." The crowd cheered. Izuku emerged from the damaged building carrying an injured civilian. The cameras immediately turned toward him. One reporter shouted, "Who are you?" Izuku looked toward the cameras. "My name is Izuku Midoriya." Butcher stared. "What are you doing?" Izuku stepped forward. "I'm a student from U.A. High School." Homelander's smile faded. Izuku looked directly at the cameras. "We aren't criminals." The crowd became quieter. "We came from another world." People began whispering. Izuku continued. "We don't know how we got here." Homelander walked toward him. "That's enough." Izuku didn't stop. "We've seen what Vought does." Homelander's eyes narrowed. "Careful." Izuku looked at the surrounding civilians. We've seen heroes treated as products. The crowd became increasingly silent. We've seen civilians injured and the truth hidden. Butcher slowly lowered his weapon. Hughie stared at Izuku. He's actually doing it. Izuku raised the hard drive. And we have evidence. The reporters immediately focused their cameras on it. Homelander's expression finally changed. Give me that. Izuku stepped backward. No. Butcher activated a small device. The information from the hard drive began appearing on nearby screens. Medical records. Compound versus reports. Photographs. Test results. The crowd stared. One reporter whispered, "What is that?" Hughie answered from behind the cameras. "Proof." Homelander looked toward the screens. "Turn that off." The screens continued. Butcher had already connected them to several media networks. Izuku spoke clearly. "Compound V is real." Gasps spread through the crowd. Many of the superheroes people worship were given their powers artificially. Homelander looked furious. "Lies." Izuku shook his head. The documents contain Vought's own records. The Deep looked at the screens. His expression became uncomfortable. Black Noir remained motionless. A train appeared on another screen. He had received the broadcast through his phone. He stared at the information. They actually did it. Back on the street, Homelander looked at the crowd. "Don't listen to them." The crowd began shouting. "What is Compound versus? Are the 7 fake? Did Vought create them?" The cameras continued rolling. Homelander's public smile disappeared. Izuku stepped toward the cameras. "We aren't asking you to trust us." He looked at the civilians. "We're asking you to investigate the truth." Iida stepped beside him. Heroes should be accountable for their actions. Ochako joined them. People deserve to know who is protecting them. Todoroki stood on Izuku's other side. And who is exploiting them? Bakugo crossed his arms. "That's all." Tsuyu nodded. "Exactly. Ribbit." The 6 stood together. Behind them, civilians watched. For the first time, the crowd wasn't cheering Homelander. They were staring at him. Homelander's fists tightened. His eyes began glowing. Izuku noticed immediately. "Everyone, prepare." Butcher shouted. "Don't fire." Homelander looked around. Thousands of cameras were pointed at him. If he attacked now, the entire world would see it. His eyes stopped glowing. He forced a smile. "This is misinformation." He turned toward the cameras. "Vought will address these accusations." Then he flew away. Whoosh. The crowd remained silent. The broadcast spread across the world within minutes. News stations replayed the documents. Social media exploded. Vought's stock price began falling. People demanded investigations. Politicians called for hearings. The 7's popularity dropped sharply. Inside Vought Tower, executives shouted at one another. "Shut down the broadcast. We can't. Find the source. It's everywhere." One executive looked toward the television. Izuku's face remained on every major channel. The executive whispered, "Who is this kid?" That night, Izuku and the others returned to the safe house. Butcher walked into the room. He looked at Izuku for several seconds. "You just declared war on Vought." Izuku closed his notebook. "They already declared war on us." Butcher smiled. "Fair point." Bakugo sat on the couch. "So what's next?" Izuku looked at the map. "We find their main laboratories." Todoroki nodded. "And destroy the source of Compound versus." Iida adjusted his glasses. "While finding a method to return home." Ochako looked toward the window. "And stopping Homelander." Izuku nodded. "All 3. Outside, sirens echoed through New York. The city was no longer looking at the 7 the same way. And somewhere high above the streets, Homelander watched the broadcast again. This time, there was no smile on his face. "Izuku Midoriya." He repeated the name quietly. "You made a mistake." His eyes began glowing red. "You made me angry." The safe house had been abandoned. Vought had found it less than 12 hours after the public broadcast, forcing Izuku and the others to move through a series of underground tunnels beneath New York. They finally stopped inside an old maintenance station. Izuku spread a map across the floor. Several red markers surrounded their position. They're not searching randomly anymore. Iida adjusted his glasses. How many units? At least 6 teams. Butcher crouched beside the map. And that's only the ones we can see. Bakugo cracked his knuckles. Good. Izuku looked at him. We're not fighting them head-on. Bakugo frowned. Then what's the plan? Izuku pointed toward the map. We split their forces. A radio suddenly activated. Target located. Izuku immediately looked up. They found us. Butcher reached for his weapon. Everyone ready. The lights outside the station suddenly went out. Then came the sound of approaching vehicles. Boom. The entrance exploded. Vought soldiers rushed through the smoke. Move. Izuku activated full cowling. Green lightning surrounded his body. Iida, take the left side. Understood. Iida accelerated. Boom. He struck the first group and sent them crashing into the wall. Todoroki raised his hand. Ice. Crack. A massive wall spread across the corridor. Several soldiers were trapped behind it. Bakugo. Already moving. Boom. Bakugo launched himself over the ice and landed behind the soldiers. Another explosion knocked their weapons away. Stay down. More soldiers entered from the opposite corridor. Ochako touched the floor. Zero gravity. Pieces of broken concrete floated upward. She pushed them toward the soldiers. The debris blocked their path without seriously injuring anyone. Tsuyu moved through the darkness. There are more coming from behind, Ribbit. Izuku nodded. Then we'll give them somewhere else to go. Black Whip extended from his arms. He grabbed several pipes along the ceiling. With one pull, the pipes fell across the corridor. Crash. The soldiers stopped. Izuku pointed toward a side passage. Butcher. Take Hughie through there. Butcher nodded. What about you? We'll draw them away. The group split. Butcher and Hughie disappeared through the side passage while Izuku led the students in the opposite direction. Vought soldiers chased them. Izuku looked back. They're following. Bakugo grinned. Perfect. He fired an explosion into the floor. Boom. The ceiling above them shook. Izuku immediately shouted, "Stop." Bakugo looked confused. What? Not enough. Izuku pointed toward the damaged support beams. Todoroki. Todoroki understood. Ice spread across the beams. Crack. The entire passage became reinforced. The soldiers rushed forward. Then the ice suddenly collapsed behind the students. Crash. The corridor was blocked. No one was injured. The soldiers were trapped on the other side. Bakugo smiled. Now that's a trap. Izuku nodded. Keep moving. They emerged onto the surface. A military convoy waited outside. Dozens of soldiers surrounded the street. A loudspeaker activated. Izuku Midoriya, surrender immediately. Izuku looked around. Civilians were still nearby. They're using the crowd as a shield. Todoroki frowned. We can't attack. Izuku nodded. Exactly. He looked at Ochako. Can you move the vehicles? Some of them. Do it. Ochako touched the nearest armored vehicle. Zero gravity. The vehicle became weightless. She pushed it sideways. The road opened. Iida. Yes. Get the civilians out. Iida disappeared. Seconds later, civilians began moving away from the battlefield at incredible speed. Tsuyu followed, helping anyone who couldn't keep up. The soldiers opened fire. Rat-a-tat. Todoroki raised an enormous ice wall. Crack. The bullets struck the ice. Bakugo jumped over it. Boom. He destroyed several weapons with controlled explosions. Izuku moved between the soldiers. He used Black Whip to pull weapons from their hands. One soldier tried to attack him with a rifle. Izuku twisted aside. Danger sense warned him of another attack. He ducked. The rifle passed above his head. Black whip wrapped around the soldier's arm. Izuku pulled. The soldier fell. Stay down. A larger vehicle suddenly arrived. Its doors opened. A heavily armored Supes stepped out. Butcher's voice came through the radio. That's a Vought enforcer. Izuku looked at the newcomer. The Supe charged. Boom. He smashed through Todoroki's ice wall. Todoroki jumped backward. Bakugo attacked. Boom. The Supe barely moved. He's tough. Izuku nodded. Don't try to overpower him. Bakugo looked at him. Then what? Izuku pointed toward the street. Ochako. Ochako immediately understood. She touched the Supe. Zero gravity. The armored man suddenly floated upward. What? Todoroki created an ice ramp beneath him. The floating Supe drifted toward it. Iida accelerated. Now, he struck the man while he was unable to control his movement. Boom. The Supe flew into the side of an empty building. He landed unconscious. Bakugo stared. That was actually pretty easy. Izuku shook his head. Because we worked together. More vehicles appeared in the distance. Izuku looked at the road. We can't stay. The students moved. Todoroki froze the road behind them. Crack. The vehicles lost traction. Bakugo blasted a nearby wall, creating another escape route. Boom. Iida carried the slower members. Ochako floated heavy debris out of their way. Tsuyu moved between rooftops, watching for pursuit. Izuku remained at the rear. He used Black Whip to pull a fallen street sign into the road. Crash. The pursuing vehicles swerved. One crashed into another. Boom. The students disappeared into an alley. They eventually reunited with Butcher and Hughie inside an abandoned subway station. Butcher looked at the students. Everyone still breathing? Yes, Iida answered. Hughie looked toward the entrance. How many did you fight? Bakugo shrugged. Not enough. Butcher laughed. You really are a pain in the ass. Izuku placed the map on a nearby table. We learned something. Butcher looked at him. What? Vought isn't just trying to capture us. Izuku pointed toward the red markers. They're testing our abilities. Todoroki nodded. They changed tactics after every encounter. Iida added. They're collecting combat data. Butcher's expression became serious. Then we've got a bigger problem. Izuku looked at the compound versus files. They want to understand our quirks. Ochako frowned. So they can recreate them. Maybe. Butcher nodded. And if they can reproduce even one of your quirks. He didn't finish. Everyone understood. Izuku closed his notebook. Then we can't let them capture anyone. Bakugo smiled. Good. He raised his palms. Because I'm not getting captured. Outside the subway station, another Vought vehicle stopped. A soldier stepped out and looked at the empty street. His radio activated. Targets escaped. A voice answered. Continue pursuit. The soldier hesitated. What about casualties? Irrelevant. The transmission ended. The soldier looked toward the dark subway entrance. He had no idea that the 6 teenagers inside were already preparing their next move. This time, they weren't going to wait for Vought to attack. They were going after Vought. The abandoned subway station had become the group's temporary base. Izuku stood over the map while Butcher explained their next problem. Vought isn't sending ordinary soldiers anymore. He placed a photograph on the table. Queen Maeve. Bakugo crossed his arms. Another Supe. One of the 7, Butcher replied. Ochako looked at the photograph. She's supposed to be a hero, right? Butcher gave a dry laugh. That's what the advertisements say. Izuku studied the photograph. But she doesn't look like Homelander. She isn't. Butcher paused. But she's still working for him. Several hours later, the group moved through a damaged section of downtown. Their objective was simple. Rescue civilians trapped inside a collapsed apartment building before Vought's recovery teams arrived. Izuku led the group. We have 23 civilians inside. Iida looked at the building. The structure is unstable. Todoroki raised his hand. I can reinforce the lower section. Do it. Ice spread beneath the damaged foundation. Crack. The building stopped shifting. Ochako immediately began removing rubble. Tsuyu slipped through narrow gaps. I found 3 people. Ribbit. Iida rushed forward. I'll carry them out. Bakugo blasted apart a large concrete slab. Boom. Izuku caught the falling debris with Black Whip. Careful. I know. Then a voice came from behind them. Step away from the building. Everyone turned. Queen Maeve stood in the street. Her armor was damaged from previous battles, but she remained standing confidently. Bakugo raised his hands. Another Vought puppet. Maeve frowned. I'm not here to fight you. Butcher immediately raised his weapon. Then why are you here? Maeve looked at the collapsed building. To stop you. Izuku stepped forward. People are trapped inside. I know. Then help us. Maeve hesitated. I can't. Bakugo scoffed. Why not? Maeve looked away. Because I was ordered to bring you in. A loud crack came from the building. The upper floor shifted. Maeve immediately moved. She grabbed a massive piece of concrete before it could fall. Boom. The impact forced her backward. Izuku stared. You're protecting the building. Maeve grunted. Just get those people out. Izuku nodded. Everyone, keep evacuating. Maeve held the collapsing structure while the students worked. Iida carried civilians toward safety. Ochako floated heavy debris. Tsuyu guided trapped people through the narrow gaps. Todoroki maintained the ice support. Bakugo blasted away dangerous obstacles. Within minutes, more civilians emerged. One little girl remained inside. Tsuyu found her. There's one more. Izuku immediately moved. Where? 3rd floor. Maeve looked upward. That floor is about to collapse. Izuku activated full cowling. Then I'll go. Maeve grabbed his shoulder. Wait. She looked at him. You're not strong enough to hold that building. Izuku stared at her. Then help me. Maeve paused. Then nodded. Fine. Maeve carried Izuku toward the 3rd floor. They landed inside the damaged apartment. The little girl was trapped beneath a fallen beam. Please. Izuku rushed over. It's okay. He used Black Whip to lift the beam. Maeve grabbed it. Together, they moved it aside. The girl crawled free. Izuku picked her up. We're getting you out. Maeve looked toward the ceiling. Now. Crack. The ceiling began collapsing. Maeve shielded Izuku and the girl with her body. Boom. Debris crashed around them. Izuku activated Black Whip and pulled them through the opening. Maeve jumped. They landed safely below. The little girl immediately hugged Maeve. Thank you. Maeve froze. She looked down at the child. Then at Izuku. You didn't have to come back for me, Izuku said. Maeve looked away. Yes, I did. Bakugo smirked. So you're not completely useless. Maeve glared at him. Don't push your luck. But there was no anger in her voice. A Vought helicopter appeared overhead. A loudspeaker activated. Queen Maeve, return immediately. Maeve looked upward. Another voice followed. The targets are to be captured. Maeve's expression changed. Izuku noticed. You don't want to do this. Maeve looked at him. No. Then don't. She stared at him. You make it sound easy. Izuku shook his head. It's not. He looked toward the rescued civilians. But you just risked your life to save them. Maeve remained silent. That's what heroes do. The helicopter descended. Vought soldiers jumped out. Queen Maeve, stand aside. Maeve didn't move. One soldier raised his weapon. We have orders. Maeve stepped in front of the students. Then tell your orders to someone who cares. The soldier hesitated. Maeve. She raised her sword. I said no. Bakugo grinned. Now we're talking. The soldiers opened fire. Rat-a-tat. Maeve blocked the bullets. Todoroki created an ice wall. Crack. Bakugo blasted the weapons from their hands. Iida rushed through the group. Boom. Within seconds, the soldiers were disarmed. Maeve looked at the students. You really don't kill anyone. Izuku shook his head. That's not what heroes are supposed to do. Maeve lowered her sword. Where I come from, people stopped believing that. Izuku looked at her. Then help us show them again. The helicopter began retreating. Maeve watched it disappear. She knew what would happen next. Homelander would find out, and he would not forgive her. But she didn't move. Ochako approached her. Are you coming with us? Maeve looked at her. You trust me? Ochako smiled. You just saved a little girl. Maeve looked away. That's not enough. Izuku answered. It's a start. Later that evening, the group returned to the subway station. Maeve sat quietly while Butcher watched her from across the room. Never thought I'd see the day. Maeve looked at him. Don't get sentimental. Butcher smirked. Wasn't planning to. Izuku placed a cup of water beside her. Welcome. Maeve looked at him. Don't make me regret this. Izuku nodded. I won't. Outside, the news was already reporting that Queen Maeve had disappeared. Vought called her actions a temporary tactical deviation. But the truth was much simpler. For the first time in years, Maeve had chosen to act like a hero. And she had chosen to stand beside 6 teenagers from another world who refused to stop doing the same. The subway station had become more crowded. Queen Maeve now stood beside Butcher's group, while Izuku and the others studied a map spread across an old table. Butcher placed a photograph in the center. This is the facility. Izuku leaned closer. What is it? One of Vought's underground laboratories. Hughie pointed toward another section. We've confirmed that they're producing temp verses here. Bakugo frowned. More compound verses. Something different. Hughie replied. Temp verses gives ordinary people temporary superpowers. Todoroki looked at the photograph. And they're manufacturing it here. Butcher nodded. Which means we're going in. Bakugo grinned. Finally, the facility was hidden beneath an abandoned pharmaceutical warehouse. The group entered through an underground maintenance tunnel. Maeve led the way. There will be security everywhere. Iida adjusted his glasses. Then we should avoid unnecessary combat. Bakugo glanced at him. Boring. Izuku looked at the map. We don't need to fight everyone. He pointed toward several locations. There are 3 important areas. The security center, the main laboratory, and the storage chamber. Butcher nodded. We split into teams. Izuku looked at everyone. I'll take the laboratory with Todoroki and Bakugo. Iida stepped forward. I'll accompany Maeve to the security center. Ochako raised her hand. Tsuyu and I can handle the storage area. Butcher looked at them. Remember, we're here to destroy the operation, not the people. Bakugo sighed. Yeah. The first security door opened. Beep. A guard looked toward the corridor. Who's there? Iida appeared in front of him. Good evening. The guard barely had time to react. Iida struck the weapon from his hand. Maeve caught him before he fell. Quiet. The guard was lowered safely to the floor. Iida nodded. Efficient. Maeve almost smiled. You're getting used to this. In another corridor, Izuku, Bakugo, and Todoroki moved toward the main laboratory. Izuku stopped. Danger sense activated. Someone's coming. Bakugo raised his hands. 3 armored guards rushed around the corner. Boom. Bakugo's explosion knocked the weapons from their hands. Todoroki froze the floor. Crack. The guards slipped and fell. Izuku moved forward and restrained them with Black Whip. Done. Bakugo smirked. Too easy. Then alarms began screaming. Beep. 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 Todoroki looked toward the ceiling. They know we're here. Izuku nodded. Then we move faster. Ochako and Tsuyu reached the storage chamber. Rows of containers filled the room. Tsuyu crouched beside one. There are hundreds. Ribbit. Ochako looked at the labels. Temp V. She frowned. They're really making all of this. Tsuyu pointed toward another section. There's something else. Ochako approached. Inside several reinforced containers were small vials labeled with experimental codes. These aren't finished. Tsuyu looked at the documents. They're testing new versions. Ochako's expression hardened. Then we destroy them too. The laboratory doors opened. Izuku stopped. Inside were dozens of scientists. Machines filled the room. Large containers held glowing blue liquid. Bakugo stared. That's it. Todoroki looked around. Looks like it. Izuku walked toward the main console. This entire facility is connected. He pointed toward the pipes. If we destroy the main production system, the rest will shut down. Bakugo smiled. Then let's blow it up. Izuku shook his head. Not yet. He looked at the scientists. They're still inside. One scientist stepped forward. Wait. Izuku turned. The man raised his hands. We don't want to fight. Bakugo narrowed his eyes. Then move. The scientist shook his head. You don't understand what happens if this place explodes. Izuku looked at him. Then tell us. The scientist glanced toward the machinery. The facility is connected to the storage tanks beneath the city. Todoroki frowned. How much? Enough to destroy several blocks. Izuku's eyes widened. Then we'll shut it down properly. Suddenly, metal doors slammed shut. Crash. Everyone turned. A voice came through the speakers. You're all becoming very annoying. Homelander. Maeve's expression changed. He found us. The lights turned red. The laboratory doors locked. Butcher's voice came through the radio. What's happening? Izuku answered. We're trapped inside. Can you get out? Izuku looked toward the machinery. Yes. He paused. But it'll take time. Homelander's voice returned. Queen Maeve. Maeve looked toward the speaker. You disappoint me. She clenched her fists. Leave them alone. You betrayed me for children. Maeve answered. They're better heroes than you. Silence. Then Homelander laughed. We'll see. The lights flickered. The facility shook. Boom. A massive impact struck the exterior. Todoroki looked upward. He's attacking the building. Izuku immediately turned toward the scientists. Everyone move away from the tanks. The main production chamber began collapsing. Crack. Pipes broke. Blue liquid began spilling across the floor. Bakugo looked at Izuku. Now. Izuku nodded. Now. Todoroki froze the leaking pipes. Crack. Bakugo blasted the main machinery. Boom. Sparks flew everywhere. Izuku used Black Whip to pull emergency levers. One by one, the production systems shut down. Beep. 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 The main reactor began powering down. Ochako and Tsuyu reached them. Ochako held the experimental vials. We found these. Izuku looked at them. Destroy them. Ochako nodded. She activated zero gravity. The containers floated. Todoroki froze them. Crack. Bakugo fired a controlled explosion. Boom. The vials shattered inside the ice. The experimental compound was destroyed. Tsuyu looked at the ruined storage room. That's everything. Ribbit. Izuku checked the console. Production has stopped. Then the ceiling exploded. Boom. Dust filled the laboratory. Everyone looked upward. Homelander descended through the hole. Maeve stepped forward. Stay back. Homelander looked at her. You really chose them. Maeve raised her sword. Yes. Homelander's eyes began glowing. Izuku moved beside Maeve. We're not letting you destroy this place. Homelander smiled. Then I'll destroy you instead. Bakugo raised his hands. Come on. Todoroki's flames ignited. Iida accelerated. Ochako and Tsuyu moved into position. Izuku stared at Homelander. The laboratory was still collapsing around them. They had stopped the production of Temp V. But escaping the building would be another battle entirely. The Vought laboratory was collapsing. Crack. Pipes burst from the ceiling as alarms continued screaming through the facility. Izuku stood between Homelander and the others. Everyone, get the scientists out. Maeve looked at him. What about you? Izuku raised his fists. I'll keep him busy. Homelander smiled. You think you can stop me? Izuku didn't answer. His danger sense activated. Homelander vanished. Boom. Izuku was thrown across the laboratory. He crashed into a metal wall. Izuku. Ochako started running toward him. Don't. Izuku pushed himself upright. Get them out. Homelander descended slowly. You're stubborn. Izuku wiped dust from his face. People are still inside this building. So. Homelander's eyes glowed. Let it fall. Izuku's expression hardened. No. Homelander fired. Whoosh. Todoroki stepped in front of Izuku. A massive wall of ice erupted. Crack. The lasers cut through it. Todoroki immediately switched to fire. Whoosh. Flames forced Homelander backward. Bakugo launched himself forward. Boom. His explosion struck Homelander in the chest. Homelander barely moved. Annoying. Bakugo grinned. That's the point. Iida rushed past them. Everyone, follow me. The scientists began running toward the emergency exit. Ochako floated fallen debris out of the way. Tsuyu helped the slower scientists move through the corridor. Maeve remained behind. Homelander looked at her. You should be helping them. Maeve raised her sword. I am. She charged. Homelander blocked her strike. Boom. The impact shook the room. Maeve was thrown backward. She landed on her feet. You've gotten stronger. Homelander smiled. No. He stepped forward. You've gotten weaker. Izuku activated full cowling. Green lightning surrounded him. He rushed forward. Smash. His fist struck Homelander's jaw. Homelander moved backward. His eyes widened. Izuku followed with another punch. Boom. Homelander blocked. The force pushed him through a wall. Crash. Izuku landed. He can be pushed back. Bakugo grinned. Then keep pushing. Homelander emerged from the debris. His face was no longer amused. Enough. His eyes glowed. Izuku's danger sense screamed. Move. Everyone scattered. Whoosh. Lasers swept across the laboratory. Metal melted. Pipes exploded. Boom. The floor began collapsing. Todoroki created ice beneath everyone. We're running out of ground. Izuku looked toward the exit. Then we finish this quickly. Homelander flew toward him. Izuku dodged. Black Whip wrapped around Homelander's arm. Got you. Homelander pulled. Izuku was dragged through the air. He released Black Whip at the last second. Homelander's fist missed. Boom. Izuku countered with a kick. Homelander grabbed his leg. Got you. Izuku's eyes widened. Danger sense activated. Black Whip wrapped around a nearby support beam. He pulled himself free. Homelander punched the beam instead. Crack. The entire structure bent. Bakugo attacked from above. Die. Boom. Homelander blocked the explosion. Todoroki followed with a massive wave of ice. Crack. Homelander was trapped. Bakugo fired again. Boom. The ice shattered. Homelander emerged. His costume was damaged. He looked furious. You children are beginning to irritate me. Bakugo smirked. Good. Suddenly, the entire building shook. Boom. A massive section of the laboratory collapsed. Izuku looked toward the emergency exit. Everyone out. Maeve grabbed 2 scientists. Iida carried another. Ochako floated a huge slab of concrete. Tsuyu pulled a trapped researcher free. Todoroki froze the falling debris. Izuku remained behind. Homelander hovered in front of him. You could leave. Izuku looked toward the civilians. So could you. Homelander laughed. This place means nothing to me. Then why destroy it? Because I can. Izuku clenched his fists. That's exactly why you're not a hero. Homelander's smile disappeared. Homelander charged. Boom. Izuku blocked the punch. The impact sent cracks across the floor. Another punch. Izuku dodged. Another. Danger sense warned him. He ducked. Homelander's fist destroyed the wall. Izuku used Black Whip to pull himself around him. You can't keep protecting everyone. Homelander shouted. Izuku landed behind him. Watch me. He released a powerful smash. Boom. Homelander crashed through several walls. Izuku immediately turned toward the exit. He ran. The remaining scientists were almost outside. Then the floor beneath them collapsed. Crack. One scientist fell. Help. Iida jumped. He caught the man's hand. Hold on. The scientist slipped further. Ochako touched him. Zero gravity. The scientist became weightless. Iida pulled him upward. Got you. They reached the surface. The group emerged from the facility just as the building began collapsing behind them. Boom. The entire warehouse shook. Dust covered the street. Everyone stared at the ruins. Then a figure rose from the debris. Homelander. His cape was torn. Blood trickled from his forehead. His eyes burned red. The crowd nearby began screaming. Homelander looked around. There were cameras everywhere. He stared directly at them. You wanted to see the truth. His voice echoed through the street. Fine. Izuku stepped forward. Homelander. Homelander ignored him. He looked at the cameras. You think I'm going to apologize? Silence. For what? His smile became twisted. For being stronger than everyone else. The crowd began backing away. Maeve looked horrified. Don't. Homelander turned toward her. You don't get to tell me what to do. His eyes glowed brighter. Izuku immediately moved. Everyone, evacuate. Whoosh. The lasers struck the street. Boom. Cars exploded. People screamed and ran. Todoroki created an enormous ice barrier. Crack. The laser tore through it. Bakugo flew above the crowd. Move. Get away from here. Iida accelerated through the streets, carrying civilians away. Ochako floated vehicles blocking evacuation routes. Tsuyu guided people through narrow alleys. Maeve shielded a group from falling debris. Izuku stood directly in front of Homelander. You're hurting innocent people. Homelander smiled. Yes. His eyes glowed again. And now everyone gets to see what happens when they stop loving me. The next blast tore through the city. Boom. Buildings shook. Sirens filled the streets. News helicopters began broadcasting everything live. Vought executives watched in horror. Their greatest asset was no longer pretending. Homelander had stopped caring about the cameras. And Izuku realized something worse. This wasn't an attack anymore. It was a rampage. The streets of New York had become a battlefield. Sirens screamed between the buildings. Cars were overturned. Smoke covered the roads. Homelander hovered above the intersection, his eyes glowing red. Izuku stood below him. His costume was torn, and blood ran from a cut above his eyebrow. Behind him, Iida, Bakugo, Todoroki, Ochako, Tsuyu, and Maeve were helping civilians escape. Everyone keep moving, Iida shouted. Ochako floated a fallen bus away from the street. Todoroki raised an enormous wall of ice between the civilians and Homelander. Crack. The wall shook under another laser blast. Izuku. Todoroki shouted. Izuku looked upward. I know. Homelander smiled, still trying to play hero. Izuku lowered his stance. Yes. Homelander disappeared. Boom. Izuku barely blocked the punch with his arms. The force launched him through the street. Crash. He rolled several meters before stopping. Izuku. Don't come over here. Izuku pushed himself up. His arms trembled. Homelander landed in front of him. You're tough. Izuku breathed heavily. You're not getting past me. Homelander laughed. Then I'll go through you. Homelander charged again. Danger sense activated. Izuku moved. Boom. The punch missed. Izuku countered. Smash. His fist struck Homelander's ribs. Homelander slid backward. Izuku immediately followed. Black whip shot from his arms. It wrapped around Homelander's torso. Izuku pulled. Come here. Homelander flew toward him. Izuku's leg slammed into his stomach. Boom. Homelander crashed into a building. The wall collapsed around him. Bakugo grinned from a nearby rooftop. Nice one. Izuku didn't answer. Danger Sense screamed again. He turned. Homelander burst through the rubble. Boom. Izuku crossed his arms. The impact sent him flying. He smashed through 2 parked cars. Crash. Homelander walked toward him. You're getting tired. Izuku slowly stood. So are you. Homelander touched his cheek. There was a small cut. His expression darkened. You really think you can beat me? Izuku clenched his fists. I don't need to beat you alone. Homelander looked around. Todoroki stood on one side. Bakugo on another. Iida was evacuating civilians. Ochako and Tsuyu were clearing the streets. Maeve stood behind them. Homelander laughed. You think teamwork will save you? Izuku nodded. Yes. Todoroki raised both hands. Izuku. Now. Ice erupted across the street. Crack. Homelander's legs were trapped. Bakugo launched himself forward. Boom. He struck Homelander's shoulder. Iida accelerated. Recipro burst. He struck from behind. Homelander stumbled. Ochako touched several pieces of debris. Zero gravity. The rubble floated around him. Tsuyu used her tongue to pull a streetlight loose. She swung it toward Homelander. Boom. Homelander destroyed it with his fist. But the distraction was enough. Izuku rushed forward. Green lightning covered his body. Full cowling. Homelander saw him coming. His eyes glowed. Izuku's danger sense activated. He shifted left. Whoosh. The laser missed. Izuku jumped. Black Whip grabbed the side of a building. He swung around Homelander. Fa Jin released. His stored kinetic energy surged through his legs. Izuku accelerated. Homelander turned. Too late. Izuku's fist struck his jaw. Boom. Homelander flew across the street. He crashed through a concrete wall. The crowd gasped. Bakugo grinned. That's more like it. Homelander rose again. His face was covered in dust. He looked at Izuku. What are you? Izuku stood ready. A hero. Homelander laughed. No. His eyes burned. You're a child. Whoosh. 2 lasers fired. Izuku jumped. The beams followed him. Danger sense warned him every time. He twisted through the air. Black Whip pulled him around a building. The lasers destroyed windows behind him. Boom. Izuku landed on a rooftop. Homelander flew toward him. Izuku waited. Danger sense. Now. He stepped aside. Homelander passed him. Izuku grabbed him with Black Whip. Black Whip. He swung Homelander downward. Boom. Homelander crashed into the street. Izuku landed. His breathing had become heavier. One for All was pushing his body hard. But he couldn't stop. Homelander began rising again. Izuku's eyes narrowed. He's still standing. Maeve approached. You can't keep this up. Izuku nodded. I know. Then let us help. Izuku looked at her. Maeve raised her sword. We'll hold him down. Bakugo stepped beside her. And I'll blow him apart. Todoroki raised his hand. I'll restrict his movement. Iida nodded. I'll keep him away from civilians. Ochako smiled. And I'll make sure he can't use the debris against us. Izuku looked at all of them. Then nodded. Okay. Homelander charged. Todoroki acted first. A massive wall of ice erupted. Crack. Homelander smashed through it. Maeve attacked from the side. Boom. Her sword struck his shoulder. Homelander staggered. Bakugo followed. Boom. Another explosion hit him. Iida accelerated around him. Left. Izuku understood. He moved right. Black Whip wrapped around Homelander's arms. Ochako touched his legs. Zero gravity. Homelander became weightless. He struggled to control himself. Get off me. Maeve grabbed him. Not this time. Izuku pulled the Black Whip tight. His body began glowing with green energy. Fa Jin. One for All surged through his limbs. Danger sense remained active. Black Whip tightened. Todoroki froze Homelander's lower body. Bakugo fired another concentrated explosion. Boom. Homelander was forced downward. Izuku pulled his fist backward. Detroit smash. Homelander's eyes widened. Izuku lunged. Boom. The punch struck his chest. A massive shockwave spread through the street. Windows shattered. Dust erupted. Homelander was launched through several buildings before finally crashing into the ground. Crash. Silence followed. Izuku landed on the street. His knees nearly gave out. Bakugo caught his shoulder. Don't collapse yet. Izuku breathed heavily. I'm fine. Todoroki approached. He's down. Izuku looked toward the crater. Homelander was motionless. Maeve stared at him. That's impossible. Izuku shook his head. He'll get back up. Butcher's voice came through the radio. Not yet. Everyone looked toward him. Butcher stood beside a news van. You just knocked the world's most powerful Supe through 3 buildings. Bakugo grinned. 3. Butcher looked toward the destruction. 4. Bakugo smiled wider. Nice. All around them, civilians stared. The cameras were still broadcasting. This time, they weren't seeing Homelander standing above everyone. They were seeing 6 teenagers and 1 former member of the 7 protecting civilians while fighting him. Izuku looked toward the cameras. He didn't pose. He didn't smile. He simply turned toward the injured people. Are you all okay? A woman nodded. Yes. Izuku smiled faintly. Good. Behind him, Maeve looked at the destroyed street. For the first time, she understood why Homelander had been afraid of these kids. They weren't stronger because they had better powers. They were stronger because they fought together. And Homelander had never learned how to do that. The street had finally become quiet. Smoke drifted between the damaged buildings while emergency crews rushed toward the civilians. In the center of the ruined intersection, Izuku stood with his classmates. Homelander was still buried beneath the rubble. Maeve looked toward the crater. We need to make sure he can't get back up. Izuku nodded. But we also need to keep everyone away from him. Iida immediately turned toward the crowd. Everyone, please move behind the barriers. He accelerated through the street, guiding civilians toward safety. Ochako floated several overturned cars out of the way. Tsuyu helped injured people cross the road. This way, Ribbit. Todoroki raised a massive wall of ice around the battlefield. Crack. The ice formed a wide perimeter. Bakugo hovered above them. So what's the plan? Izuku looked toward the crater. We don't give him a chance to separate us. The rubble suddenly exploded. Boom. Homelander emerged. His costume was torn, and blood covered part of his face. His expression was furious. You little brats. Bakugo grinned. Still standing. Homelander flew upward. His eyes glowed red. Izuku immediately shouted. Scatter. Whoosh. Lasers swept across the battlefield. Todoroki raised ice. Crack. The beams cut through it. Bakugo flew above the attack. Iida accelerated across the street. Ochako touched a large piece of debris. Zero gravity. The rubble floated upward. Homelander destroyed it with another laser. Boom. Tsuyu pulled herself onto a building using her tongue. Izuku watched carefully. He's focusing on whoever moves alone. Iida stopped beside him. Then we shouldn't move alone. Izuku smiled. Exactly. Todoroki raised both hands. I'll restrict his movement. A massive wave of ice spread across the street. Crack. Homelander's legs became trapped. Bakugo immediately attacked. Boom. The explosion struck Homelander's shoulder. Homelander broke free. Enough. He punched toward Bakugo. Iida appeared between them. Recipro burst. He kicked Homelander away. Boom. Homelander crashed into the ice. Bakugo stared. Nice timing. Iida adjusted his glasses. Teamwork. Homelander flew toward Iida. Izuku's danger sense activated. Iida. Left. Iida immediately moved. Homelander's fist missed. Izuku's black whip wrapped around Homelander's arm. Now. Bakugo fired. Boom. Homelander was pushed toward Todoroki. Todoroki raised another wall. Crack. Homelander crashed into it. Ochako touched the ground. Zero gravity. The entire section of broken pavement beneath Homelander became weightless. He lost his footing. Tsuyu's tongue wrapped around his arm. Got you. Ribbit. Maeve rushed forward. Boom. She struck Homelander across the face. He was thrown backward. Homelander recovered in midair. His eyes glowed. You think this little game will stop me? Izuku looked at the others. We're not trying to overpower him. Bakugo glanced at him. Then what? We're controlling him. Izuku pointed toward Todoroki. Ice. Todoroki nodded. A massive wall rose behind Homelander. Izuku pointed toward Ochako. Gravity. Ochako touched the surrounding rubble. The debris began floating. Iida. Ready. Keep him moving. Understood. Bakugo. Bakugo grinned. Finally. Pressure him from above. Got it. Izuku turned toward Maeve. Keep him grounded. Maeve nodded. And you. Izuku activated full cowling. I'll finish the openings. Iida moved first. Boom. He struck Homelander from the side. Homelander turned. Bakugo attacked from above. Boom. Homelander blocked the explosion. Maeve charged from below. Boom. Her punch forced him upward. Ochako removed his ability to control his movement. Todoroki froze the space around him. Crack. Homelander became trapped between layers of ice and floating debris. Izuku launched himself forward. Black Whip grabbed a nearby building. He swung around the battlefield. Danger sense warned him of Homelander's laser. Izuku released Black Whip. Whoosh. The laser missed. He landed behind Homelander. Black Whip. The tendrils wrapped around his torso. Homelander struggled. Get off me. Izuku pulled. Everyone. Now. Todoroki released a massive wave of ice. Crack. Homelander's lower body became completely frozen. Bakugo fired a concentrated explosion. Boom. The ice shattered around Homelander while forcing him downward. Maeve struck his chest. Boom. Iida hit him from the side. Ochako released zero gravity. Homelander floated helplessly. Izuku pulled the Black Whip tighter. You're not getting away. Homelander's eyes widened. You think this will hold me? No. Izuku's eyes hardened. We will. Homelander suddenly released an enormous burst of force. Boom. Everyone was thrown backward. Bakugo slammed into a wall. Todoroki fell to one knee. Iida rolled across the street. Maeve crashed through a vehicle. Izuku remained standing only because Black Whip had anchored him to a building. Homelander broke free. Enough. He flew toward the civilians. Izuku's danger sense screamed. He's going after them. Iida immediately accelerated. Not happening. He intercepted Homelander. Boom. The collision shook the street. Homelander grabbed Iida. Move. Iida struggled. Never. Ochako touched Homelander. Zero gravity. Homelander became weightless again. Todoroki froze his path. Bakugo blasted him backward. Maeve caught Iida. Izuku rushed forward. Everyone together. The group moved as one. Iida created the opening. Todoroki restricted movement. Ochako controlled gravity. Tsuyu restrained Homelander's arms. Maeve held his body. Bakugo overwhelmed him with explosions. Izuku closed the distance. Green lightning surged across his body. One for all. Homelander stared at him. Izuku pulled his fist back. Detroit smash. Boom. The punch struck Homelander and sent him flying across the battlefield. He crashed into the ground. Silence returned. Izuku landed beside his classmates. Everyone was exhausted. Bakugo breathed heavily. That was better. Todoroki nodded. Our coordination improved. Iida looked toward the civilians. And nobody was caught in the battle. Ochako smiled. That's what matters. Maeve looked at the students. You've fought him several times now. Izuku nodded. Yes. Maeve looked toward Homelander's crater. And you're still treating him like a person. Izuku looked at her. Because he is one. Maeve remained silent. Then she smiled faintly. You're strange. Sirens approached from every direction. News helicopters circled above. The world watched the scene unfold. The cameras showed Izuku standing with his classmates. Not as celebrities, not as corporate products, but as a team. A group of young heroes from another world had just stood against the most powerful Supe in America and refused to abandon anyone. Homelander slowly opened his eyes. He stared at them from the crater. For the first time, fear appeared in his expression. Not because Izuku was stronger, but because he finally understood. He wasn't fighting one hero. He was fighting an entire class. The city had barely recovered from the previous battle. Emergency crews surrounded the streets while reporters continued broadcasting from behind the barriers. Homelander remained in the crater. For several seconds, he didn't move. Then his fingers twitched. Izuku noticed immediately. He's getting up. Bakugo raised his hands. Again, Todoroki stepped beside Izuku. He's badly injured. Maeve stared at the crater. But he's still capable of fighting. Homelander slowly rose. His breathing was heavy. His cape was torn. His face was covered in blood and dust. He looked at the students. Then at the cameras. His expression changed. You. He pointed at Izuku. You've ruined everything. Izuku frowned. We exposed the truth. You humiliated me. Homelander's voice became louder. You made them look at me differently. The crowd remained silent. No cheers. No applause. Nothing. Homelander looked around. For the first time, nobody was celebrating his return. Where are my fans? Homelander asked. No one answered. His eyes began glowing. Where are they? Izuku stepped forward. They're afraid of you. Homelander's expression twisted. No. Izuku continued. They're afraid because you stopped pretending. Homelander flew toward him. Boom. Izuku blocked the punch. The impact pushed him backward. Homelander attacked again. Izuku dodged. Danger sense activated. Left. Izuku moved. Right. Another punch. He ducked. Black Whip shot forward. Homelander grabbed it. I've had enough of you. He pulled Izuku closer. Izuku released Black Whip from his arm and immediately launched himself upward with Fa Jin. Homelander's fist missed. Izuku spun in the air. Smash. His heel struck Homelander's shoulder. Homelander crashed into the street. Boom. Bakugo grinned. He's getting predictable. Iida nodded. His attacks are becoming increasingly aggressive. Todoroki looked at Izuku. He's losing control. Izuku nodded. That's our advantage. Homelander rose again. Stop talking about me like I'm some villain. Bakugo shouted. Then stop acting like one. Boom. Bakugo attacked. Homelander blocked. Bakugo fired another explosion. Boom. Homelander moved backward. Iida appeared behind him. Recipro burst. Boom. Homelander stumbled forward. Todoroki froze the ground. Crack. Homelander slipped. Ochako touched several pieces of debris. Zero gravity. The rubble floated around him. Tsuyu's tongue wrapped around his arm. Got you. Ribbit. Homelander tore himself free. Get away from me. Maeve charged. Homelander blocked her punch. You too. Maeve stared at him. Yes. She punched again. Boom. Homelander caught her fist. After everything I've done for you. Maeve looked at him. You didn't do anything for me. Homelander's expression froze. I gave you everything. You gave me fear. Maeve pulled her fist free. And I'm done being afraid. Homelander swung. Maeve blocked. The impact sent her sliding across the pavement. Izuku caught her. Are you okay? Maeve nodded. Keep him busy. Izuku looked toward the others. Everyone. Same formation. They moved immediately. Iida accelerated around Homelander. Todoroki created walls of ice. Bakugo attacked from above. Ochako controlled the debris. Tsuyu restrained his movements whenever an opening appeared. Maeve struck whenever Homelander became trapped. Homelander couldn't focus on one target. Every time he attacked one person, another interrupted him. Every time he escaped one trap, another appeared. His frustration grew. Stop. Boom. He released a powerful shockwave. Everyone was thrown backward. Izuku hit the pavement. Danger Sense screamed. Homelander flew toward him. Izuku rolled away. Boom. The ground exploded where he had been. Homelander landed. Stay down. Izuku slowly stood. No. Homelander charged. Izuku activated full cowling. Green lightning surged around his body. Fa Jin released. Black Whip extended. Danger Sense warned him of every attack. He moved. Left. Right. Up. Down. Homelander's punches missed one after another. The cameras followed them. The world watched as Homelander became increasingly frantic. Izuku wasn't simply avoiding his attacks. He was learning him. You always lead with your right. Homelander froze. Izuku ducked under another punch. When you're angry, you stop protecting your left side. Izuku moved behind him. And when you miss, Black Whip wrapped around Homelander. You always attack twice. Izuku pulled. Homelander turned. Too late. Now. Todoroki created an enormous wall of ice. Crack. Homelander slammed into it. Bakugo attacked. Boom. The explosion forced him downward. Iida struck his legs. Boom. Homelander fell. Ochako activated zero gravity. Tsuyu restrained his arm. Maeve grabbed his shoulder. Homelander struggled. Let go. Maeve tightened her grip. No. Izuku landed in front of him. Homelander stared at him. You think you've won? Izuku raised his fist. Not yet. Green lightning surrounded his arm. One for all surged through his body. Homelander's eyes widened. Wait. Izuku stepped forward. You've hurt enough people. Homelander tried to escape. Black Whip tightened. No. Izuku's fist pulled backward. Detroit smash. Boom. The punch struck Homelander directly in the chest. The shockwave tore through the street. Homelander was launched backward. He smashed through a concrete wall. Then another. Then another. Finally, he crashed into the ground. Silence. Izuku stood motionless. His arm trembled. Bakugo landed beside him. You got him. Todoroki looked toward the crater. He isn't moving. Iida watched the surrounding civilians. Everyone is safe. Ochako smiled. We did it. Maeve looked toward Homelander. Then toward the cameras. The crowd remained silent. A reporter slowly lowered his microphone. Another person began clapping. One clap. Then another. Soon, the sound spread through the street. Applause. Not for Homelander. For the students. Izuku looked around. He didn't celebrate. Instead, he turned toward the injured civilians. Are there any more people who need help? Butcher watched from a nearby rooftop. Hughie stood beside him. He actually did it. Butcher nodded. Yeah. What happens now? Butcher looked toward Vought Tower. Now the real fight begins. Inside Vought headquarters, executives stared at the live broadcast. Homelander had been defeated in front of millions. His image was destroyed, his authority was shattered, and his greatest enemies were still standing. One executive slowly whispered, "What do we do?" Another looked toward the screens. Nothing. Why? The executive swallowed. Because the public has finally seen him fall. Outside, Izuku stood beside his classmates. For the first time since arriving in this world, they had accomplished something that seemed impossible. They had made the symbol of Vought's power fall in front of everyone. And now the entire empire behind him was exposed. The streets were still filled with sirens. Homelander remained unconscious inside the crater while emergency crews surrounded the area. Cameras continued recording everything. For the first time, the public had seen their greatest hero defeated. Butcher watched the broadcast from inside a stolen van. Hughie sat beside him. It's happening. Butcher looked at the screens. Yeah, every major news station was showing the same footage. Homelander falling. Vought's laboratories being exposed. Compound versus documents spreading across the internet. And 6 teenagers standing beside Queen Maeve. Hughie smiled. People are finally seeing the truth. Butcher shook his head. Not all of it. He opened a laptop. We still need to bring Vought down. Inside Vought Tower, executives rushed through the corridors. Alarms were sounding throughout the building. Employees stared at their phones. Stock prices were dropping rapidly. One executive entered the main conference room. The board wants answers. Another executive slammed a folder onto the table. The public wants answers. We can't answer them. Why? Because everything they asked about is real. Silence. The room became tense. Then the doors opened. Queen Maeve walked inside. Several executives immediately stood. Maeve. She looked at them. It's over. One executive frowned. You don't get to decide that. Maeve stepped closer. Homelander is down. She placed her sword on the table. And I'm done working for Vought. Elsewhere, Izuku and the others were helping authorities evacuate the damaged areas. Iida directed traffic. Ochako floated heavy rubble away from trapped civilians. Tsuyu searched damaged buildings. Todoroki created temporary ice supports. Bakugo cleared dangerous debris with controlled explosions. Izuku moved from person to person. Are you injured? My leg. Stay still. He called for medical assistance. A young boy stared at him. Are you really from another world? Izuku smiled. Yes. Are you a real hero? Izuku paused, then nodded. I'm trying to be. The boy smiled. You're better than Homelander. Izuku looked uncomfortable. Don't compare us. A large screen in the street suddenly switched to a live broadcast. A journalist stood outside Vought Tower. Breaking news. Multiple whistleblowers have released evidence concerning Vought International and the use of compound verses. More files appeared. Medical records. Financial documents. Internal communications. Test results. Photographs. The reporter continued. Authorities have begun investigations into Vought's activities. Bakugo looked at the screen. Finally, Todoroki nodded. They can't hide it anymore. Butcher approached them. Not yet. Izuku turned. What's wrong? Butcher pointed toward the tower. There are still people inside who helped run the operation. Izuku looked toward Vought Tower. Then we make sure the evidence gets out. Butcher smiled. Already working on it. Hughie arrived with another laptop. We found something. Izuku approached. What? Hughie opened a file. Every major compound versus facility. Dozens of locations appeared. Warehouses, laboratories, testing centers. Iida stared. There are this many. More. Hughie opened another file. These are the financial transfers. Izuku's eyes widened. They've been paying officials. Butcher nodded. That's how they kept everything hidden. Maeve suddenly joined them. Then expose all of it. Izuku looked at her. Are you sure? Maeve nodded. I've spent years helping them maintain the lie. She looked toward the tower. I'm not doing it anymore. Ochako stepped beside her. Then we'll help. Maeve smiled faintly. Thanks. The group entered Vought Tower with authorities shortly afterward. The building was in chaos. Employees rushed through the halls. Security systems had been disabled. Izuku and the others reached the main server room. Hughie connected his equipment. Give me 5 minutes. Bakugo crossed his arms. You've got 3. Hughie looked at him. That's not how computers work. Then work faster. Todoroki sighed. Ignore him. Suddenly, several security guards entered. Stop. Iida moved. We don't want to fight. The guards raised their weapons. Maeve stepped forward. Put them down. The guards hesitated. One lowered his weapon. Then another. Finally, all of them surrendered. Maeve looked at them. You don't have to keep doing this. One guard nodded. We're done. Hughie suddenly shouted. Done. The files uploaded. Within seconds, the entire database was copied to hundreds of independent servers. Butcher smiled. That's it. Izuku looked at the screen. Everyone can see it now. The truth was everywhere. No single corporation could erase it. No public relations campaign could bury it. No celebrity could distract from it. Then the building shook. Boom. Everyone looked toward the windows. Another explosion followed. Boom. Butcher frowned. What now? Maeve looked outside. Several Vought facilities across the city were burning. Not because of the students. Because people were attacking them. Protests had erupted around Vought properties. Citizens demanded answers. Police surrounded corporate offices. Employees walked away from their positions. Izuku watched silently. They're finally taking action. Butcher nodded. Yeah. Hours later, Vought's board members were arrested. Company executives were taken into custody. Government investigators seized financial records. Compound versus laboratories were shut down. The Seven's remaining members disappeared from public view. The empire that had controlled the world's superhero industry for decades was collapsing. Not because one person had defeated it, but because the truth had finally become impossible to hide. Izuku stood outside Vought Tower with his classmates. The giant Vought logo above the entrance was being removed. Piece by piece. Bakugo looked upward. Good. Iida nodded. Justice has finally been served. Todoroki looked toward Izuku. What happens now? Izuku opened his notebook. We still have one problem. Ochako smiled. Getting home. Izuku nodded. Yeah. Butcher approached them. Then let's find a way. He handed Izuku a damaged piece of equipment recovered from one of Vought's laboratories. This might be what you're looking for. Izuku examined it. Dimensional technology. Hughie nodded. Apparently Vought was researching something similar. Izuku's eyes widened. Then we might actually have a chance. He looked at his classmates. For the first time since arriving in this world, they had a possible way home. But their journey wasn't over yet. The Vought Tower was almost empty. Most of its employees had been evacuated or arrested, while investigators continued searching through the company's remaining files. Inside one of the abandoned offices, Izuku sat at a desk surrounded by notebooks, computers, and pieces of dimensional equipment. Hughie placed another device beside him. This is everything we recovered. Izuku examined it carefully. There's enough here to rebuild the dimensional machine. Butcher leaned against the wall. How long? I don't know. Izuku looked at the damaged equipment. Maybe a few days. Maybe longer. Bakugo crossed his arms. Then we wait. Todoroki nodded. We have nowhere else to go. Queen Maeve entered the room. She carried several documents. The investigations are spreading. Iida looked up. How extensive? Everywhere. Maeve placed the documents on the desk. Vought's laboratories are being closed. Governments are taking control of their assets. People are demanding answers about compound verses. Ochako smiled. That's good. Maeve nodded. Yes. She looked toward Izuku. But there's something else. Izuku looked up. What? People are asking what a real hero should be. The room became quiet. Maeve continued. They've seen you. Izuku looked uncomfortable. We didn't do anything special. Bakugo snorted. We saved half the damn city. Izuku glanced at him. That's our job. Maeve smiled. Exactly. Over the next several days, the students helped wherever they could. They didn't appear at promotional events. They didn't sign contracts. They didn't accept money. They simply helped. Iida worked with emergency services to organize evacuation procedures. Todoroki helped firefighters contain damaged buildings. Ochako assisted rescue teams by removing heavy debris. Tsuyu searched flooded areas and helped trapped civilians. Bakugo cleared dangerous structures with controlled explosions. Izuku moved between every operation, recording what he learned. One evening, he returned to the subway station carrying several notebooks. Hughie looked at them. You're still writing? Izuku nodded. I've been recording everything. Why? Izuku placed the notebooks on the table. Because when we go home, I want to remember what happened here. Butcher entered the room. You planning to leave something behind? Izuku nodded. He opened one notebook. Inside were pages filled with notes about rescue operations, teamwork, civilian protection, and mistakes they had witnessed. Butcher looked at the pages. That's a lot. It's for Hughie. Hughie blinked. Me. Izuku handed him the notebook. You helped us survive this world. Hughie looked down. I didn't do much. You did. Izuku smiled. You kept fighting even when you were scared. Hughie didn't know what to say. Izuku opened another page. These are the principles we were taught at UA. He pointed toward the first line. Protect civilians first. Another line. Never abandon someone because they're difficult to save. Another. Power doesn't make someone a hero. Hughie read the pages carefully. You really believe this? Izuku nodded. Yes. Butcher looked at the notebook. And what happens when those principles aren't enough? Izuku answered immediately. Then we find another way. Butcher stared at him. Then smiled. You're bloody stubborn. Bakugo laughed. You have no idea. Later that night, Hughie sat alone in the subway station. He opened Izuku's notebook again. The final page contained a simple message. A hero is someone who chooses to help when they have the power to walk away. Hughie stared at it for several seconds. Then closed the notebook. He looked toward the damaged city outside. People were rebuilding, not because someone had promised them a perfect world, but because they had finally learned the truth. The following morning, Izuku and the others gathered around the dimensional machine. Todoroki examined the power core. The system is almost complete. Iida checked the coordinates. But we still need an energy source. Hughie pointed toward the equipment. There's one remaining compound in the laboratory. Izuku shook his head. We won't use compound verses. Butcher looked at him. Then what will power it? Izuku opened his notebook. Our quirks. Everyone stared. Bakugo raised an eyebrow. You're kidding. No. Izuku pointed toward the machine. The original dimensional anomaly was caused by our quirks interacting with each other. Todoroki understood. So we recreate the same conditions. Izuku nodded. Exactly. Maeve entered the room. You leaving soon? Izuku looked at her. Hopefully. Maeve nodded. Then there's something I want to say. The students turned toward her. When I first met you, I thought you were just another group of powerful kids. She looked at Izuku. I was wrong. Ochako smiled. Maeve continued. You reminded me why I became a hero in the first place. Bakugo looked away. Don't get sentimental. Maeve laughed. Too late. The machine began to hum. Lights activated across the chamber. Izuku stood in the center. Everyone ready? Iida nodded. Ready. Todoroki raised his hand. Yes. Ochako smiled. Ready. Tsuyu nodded. Ready. Ribbit. Bakugo cracked his knuckles. Let's go home. Izuku looked at Butcher and Hughie. Thank you. Butcher shrugged. Don't thank me yet. Hughie smiled. We'll miss you. Izuku smiled back. We'll miss you too. The machine began drawing energy from their quirks. Green lightning surrounded Izuku. Ice and fire appeared around Todoroki. Bakugo's explosions crackled. Iida's engines roared. Ochako's hands glowed. Tsuyu's tongue moved nervously. The dimensional core began spinning. Crack. A small tear appeared in the air. Everyone stared. Izuku stepped closer. Inside the rift, they could see a familiar landscape. Their world. Their home. Izuku's eyes widened. We did it. But before they could step through, he looked back. The people of this world had taught them something they would never forget. Not about strength. Not about fame. But about what happened when heroes forgot who they were supposed to protect. Izuku picked up his notebook. Let's go home. The others stepped toward the portal. Behind them, Butcher and Hughie remained beside Maeve. The rift grew wider. And for the first time since arriving in this world, the students could finally see the path home. The dimensional portal continued to expand inside the abandoned laboratory. Bright light filled the room. Izuku stood at the edge of the portal, staring at the familiar UA campus visible on the other side. That's home. Ochako smiled. We're really going back. Iida adjusted his glasses. After everything we've experienced, it is difficult to believe. Bakugo crossed his arms. Finally, Tsuyu looked back at the room. We're going to miss them, Ribbit. Behind them stood Butcher, Hughie, and Maeve. Butcher gave Izuku a small smile. You kids have caused quite a mess. Bakugo grinned. You're welcome. Wasn't a compliment. Izuku stepped toward Butcher. Thank you for helping us. Butcher shrugged. You helped us too. He looked toward the portal. Your lot reminded people what heroes were supposed to be. Izuku smiled. You can keep fighting for that. Butcher gave him a skeptical look. Don't start sounding like All Might. Izuku laughed softly. I'll try. Hughie stepped forward. Izuku. Izuku turned. Hughie held up the notebook Izuku had given him. I'll keep this. Good. And maybe we'll actually use it. Izuku nodded. I hope so. Maeve approached next. She looked at all 6 students. You know what's strange? Todoroki asked. What? I used to think being a hero meant surviving whatever Vought demanded. She looked toward the city outside. Now I know it means choosing who you're willing to protect. Ochako smiled. You already knew that. Maeve shook her head. I forgot. She looked at Izuku. You reminded me. Izuku smiled. Then don't forget again. Maeve nodded. I won't. Suddenly, the dimensional machine began shaking. Crack. The portal flickered. Iida immediately looked at the controls. The energy output is becoming unstable. Izuku turned. How long? Less than 1 minute. Bakugo raised his hands. Then stopped talking and moved. Todoroki grabbed the remaining equipment. What about the machine? Izuku looked at it. We can't take it. Butcher nodded. Then leave it. Izuku hesitated. This machine was their only connection between worlds. If it was destroyed, they might never return. He looked toward Hughie. Keep the research. Hughie nodded. We will. The portal began shrinking. Izuku stepped through first. Come on. Iida followed. Todoroki entered next. Ochako and Tsuyu followed. Bakugo looked back one final time. Take care. Butcher smirked. Try not to get thrown into another bloody universe. Bakugo laughed. No promises. He jumped through. Izuku remained at the edge. He looked at Butcher, Hughie, and Maeve. Goodbye. Maeve smiled. Goodbye, kid. Izuku stepped through. The portal collapsed. Crack. Silence returned. Izuku opened his eyes. Bright sunlight filled his vision. He immediately recognized the UA training grounds. He fell forward. Izuku. Ochako caught his arm. The others emerged from the portal behind him. Iida immediately looked around. We're back. Todoroki stared at the familiar buildings. UA. Bakugo dropped onto the ground. Finally. Tsuyu looked toward the sky. It feels good to be home, Ribbit. Izuku smiled. Then he heard a familiar voice. Midoriya. He turned. All Might stood several meters away. His expression was shocked. Young Midoriya. Izuku's eyes widened. All Might rushed toward them. Where have you all been? The students tried explaining everything. The dimensional anomaly. The strange world. Vought. Compound versus. The 7. Homelander. All Might listened in silence. When Izuku finished, All Might stared at him. You fought that Homelander? Izuku nodded. Yes. All Might looked toward the others. And you all fought him together? Iida nodded. Yes. All Might smiled. I am proud of every one of you. Bakugo looked away. Whatever. All Might laughed. Young Bakugo. I can see that your humility remains intact. Shut up. The students were taken to the infirmary. Their injuries were treated. Teachers questioned them. Police reviewed their information. But the biggest surprise came when Izuku handed over his notebook. Inside were detailed records of Compound V, Vought's experiments, and everything they had learned. This information could be useful, Izuku said. Aizawa studied the pages. Very useful. He looked at Izuku. You also documented their combat abilities. Izuku nodded. And weaknesses. Aizawa closed the notebook. Good work. Days passed. The students slowly returned to normal life. Classes resumed. Training continued. But things had changed. Izuku became more careful during rescue exercises. Iida focused even more heavily on civilian evacuation. Todoroki became more aware of how power could affect ordinary people. Ochako became faster at identifying rescue priorities. Tsuyu became more confident during dangerous operations. Even Bakugo had changed. He still shouted. He still exploded everything. But he became more careful about where his attacks landed. One afternoon, the 6 students stood together on the U.A. rooftop. The city stretched beyond the school. Ochako looked at Izuku. Do you think they're okay? Izuku knew exactly who she meant. I hope so. Todoroki looked toward the horizon. Maeve should be able to help. Iida nodded. And Hughie has the information. Bakugo crossed his arms. Butcher's probably causing trouble. Tsuyu smiled. Probably. Ribbit. Izuku laughed. Then he opened his notebook. The final page contained a new entry. World. Unknown. Lesson. Power does not decide whether someone is a hero. He paused. Then added another sentence. What matters is what they choose to do with it. Izuku closed the notebook. Far away, in another world, a television screen showed the latest news. Vought International had collapsed. Compound versus investigations continued. New laws were being discussed. Queen Maeve had become one of the most important witnesses against the corporation. Hughie continued working with investigators. Butcher remained involved in the fight against corrupt Supes. And the public had begun demanding something they had never demanded before. Heroes who actually protected them. On a shelf beside Hughie sat Izuku's notebook. It remained open to the first page. Back at U.A. The 6 students walked toward their classroom. Their classmates immediately surrounded them with questions. Where were you? What happened? Did you really fight famous Supes? Was another world really that dangerous? Bakugo shouted. Shut up. The classroom erupted in laughter. Izuku smiled. After everything they had seen, returning to ordinary school life felt almost strange. But it was welcome. He looked through the classroom window. U.A. stood exactly where it had always been. Safe. Familiar. Home. And for now, that was enough. The dimensional journey was over. Their lives as heroes, however, had only just begun.
Alright, now that we've gone through the entire story, let's move on to the educational message and key takeaways. True heroes don't need a stage. If there's one lesson Deku and Class 1A taught us in this crossover, it's that being a hero isn't about fame, corporate sponsors, or how many followers you have on a screen. In a world like the boys, power was treated as a commodity, something to be bought, sold, and used to look down on others. But real strength isn't measured by how much fear you can instill or how high your popularity stats are. Real strength is measured by empathy, sacrifice, and the quiet choice to stand up for someone else when no one is watching. You don't need a quirk, Compound V, or a cape to make a difference in the real world. Every time you stand up against injustice, help someone in need without expecting anything in return, or choose integrity over easy validation, you are acting as a true hero. Never let the cynicism of the world erase your kindness. Maybe that's all for today's video. Like if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment if you have any title suggestions for the next video. Alright, that's it, and see you in the next video. Bye.